What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Good afternoon, gang. Happy Monday. I just terrified Joker. He just went running out of the room. Is my intro that bad? It's my usual. It's kind of like I feel like it came from maybe like a Mad Dog Russo back in the day. His was like, good afternoon, everybody. Something like that. But anyway, you got to wind the show up, right? Welcome, welcome. Good to see everybody here. A couple people here hanging out already. Hope your Mondays are going well. Decent afternoon here in the New York area. Not nearly as nice as it was on Saturday. Saturday was ludicrous. It was a summer day. But we got some people here hanging out. Lone Wolf's here. Cujo's here. Hope your Monday's going well too, pal. Dimitri's here. He got here on time. I was a minute or two late, but relatively on time. On time for us. Anthony Taylor says at least the Yankees won't kill me today. Yeah, Yankees offense busting loose. We'll talk about that for sure. Andy says afternoon, Terry, Joker, and the gang. No torpedo bats today. There's torpedo bats all around the league. That is not a Yankee thing, right? It came out, and this is, I guess we'll get into it now. Bracket update. Round of 8 is complete. My bracket accuracy this year is 56%. I'm not a college basketball guy, as you guys know. I made my picks in about 5 minutes at about noon on the first day. I was like, oh, shit, my bracket. And I went, And we just have like a 12-person little pool anyway. But my God, was this year brutal. I barely even watched over the weekend for NCAA. Love the first round, the first weekend of it, and then lately the last couple of seasons I've kind of fallen off for the second round games, and then I'll come back for the finals, for the Final Four. But not my year bracket wise, but yeah. Anyway, Arcathels is here. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Arcathels asks, any quick thoughts for the early 4-game slate? So I did not project that. I mentioned in Discord just a few minutes ago, just glancing at it real quick. Chris Paddock and Christopher Sanchez seem like really obvious picks off the top as far as looking for pitchers, but I do think they're clearly in the best 2 spots. They're clearly also the most talented 2 pitchers on this slate. Martin Perez as like a veteran starter, you know you can get away with him here and there, but you also know you can get tattooed. I would lean more toward the power-hitting righties on the Twins against him than I would look at him, but he would also maybe be a not-so-chalky kind of cheap SP2 option on that slate. Cade Povich, if you really want to take a swing at it against the Red Sox, is a talented kid, was a highly regarded prospect. Sox coming in looks like a 4.5 run implied total, but on the other side, the Orioles are supporting Povich with 5 1/3 against, or 5.3 run total against Sean Newcomb. Nuke, talented guy as well, once upon a time, lefty, formerly in the Braves system. But I wouldn't really go fishing with that against what looks like a pretty great spot for the Orioles. Wind blowing out per labs anyway, 8 miles an hour there. Just glancing at the lineup, for one thing, Rafi Devers now going up against a lefty, even a medium talent lefty with all the struggles he's had. He's lost like 3 miles an hour off of his swing speed. It could be a problematic year for Rafi Devers if this continues, but I still got to expect he's going to come roaring back. He's in that lineup. Ref Snyder hitting cleanup in that lineup today. You can play the Red Sox. You can play either side of that game, but greatly would prefer the Orioles side of that going up against Newcomb as a high-end offense. Really nothing to see with the Rockies on the road. The Phillies offense against Herman Marquez is perfectly fine. I didn't actually notice that was him pitching, but I'm not sure what his innings are going to look like. It's been a minute. He was out all last year, and the Phillies are also pulling a 5.5 run implied total with the wind blowing out pretty severely, so I would lean toward Phillies bats there, shy away from Rockies bats. KC against Milwaukee. Elvin Rodriguez on the hill from Milwaukee. Not really sure anything about him. Chris Bubich, we also know what he looks like. Lefty, mediocre, 4.5 ERA type guy. You can get away with it here and there, but I wouldn't really count on it, especially with that no depth to support him. Wind blowing out there. Brewers pulling a 4.5-ish implied total against. So probably bats on either side in the KC and Brewers game. Good enough? That was the quick thoughts on the early slate for anybody playing it. But again, didn't project it. I don't have numbers on it. You will see on the screen here, I don't usually drop it in until like the second week, but I was bored. I had a half hour. I figured, what the hell, let's throw the 2025 stats up there. Obviously, we're going to do some scrolling over to talk about pitching because nobody's really pitched. But got some numbers just to have it there, talk about hot starts and whatnot. Not that, again, none of anything in that range there in 2025 matters at all, right? Raffy Devers, like I was just mentioning, he's 0 for like 14 with 12 strikeouts or something like that. The worst start ever. You don't write off Raffy Devers because of 3 bad games. That happens. It'll happen throughout the season. So it just happens to be happening right now, and it looks worse. But nothing this season yet matters. Somebody in our one of our leagues, the one where Lou, Brown, and I all share a team, dropped Bailey Ober after his 1 bad start. Bailey Ober traditionally has his worst start of the year, his first start of the year, every single year. Not that that actually means anything either, but Bailey Ober is way too good to get dropped, so don't drop him out there. By the way, if you play season long, I have a waiver wire piece and a 2-star pitcher. It's a little late for that now, but that's been up on the site since last night. It's actually open to the general public right now. EMAC retweeted it, so I left it open for everybody to be able to access last night. A little bit of advertising. But season-long content live at rotoscouts, as are the MLB projections that we're going to be talking about here. NBA, NHL for DFS tonight will go up tonight or after this show in the afternoon. You'll have access to all of those. Under $1 a day gets you access to everything at rotoscouts. Let's start talking baseball. So, torpedo bats. Yeah, they're going to be a thing. They are legal. Baseball's already looked at them. It's not something that like surprised everybody. It wasn't like the Yankees developed something and surprised everybody. These are bats that are manufactured to spec by bat companies. The Yankees did do a specific study with their hitters to find which guys would benefit from it the most, which wouldn't, where the ideal optimal spots to put the mass of wood would be for each of those individual hitters, and then they spec those out to the bat companies. But there's nothing shady about the bats or anything, and there's also not going to be anything game-breaking about the bats, and that was the point I wanted to come back to. I was at that Yankees game on Saturday. As mentioned, it was 80-something degrees on March 29th. That's an outlier warm day. The wind, sustained wind blowing out in Yankee Stadium. 3 of those home runs were hit by Aaron Judge, and they were destroyed. A couple of the other ones were hit very, very solidly. But several of those home runs were Yankee Stadium home runs, floating, carried by the breeze. It was way, way more about the 80-degree temps and the sustained wind blowing out at Yankee Stadium than it was about the torpedo bats. You saw that the next day. The Yanks had a 12-run outburst, but it wasn't nearly the same thing as far as the home runs went. So much ado about nothing, in my opinion, as far as the torpedo bats. Will it help? Sure. Will it benefit certain hitters? Sure. But we're just talking about the ability to square the ball up a little bit better and getting a little bit better, a little bit more meat on the... what they did was... You've probably all seen this already anyway, but you see this? Where it's all thick over here? Right? What they did was they took some of this mass and they moved it down into this range, which you call the label, right? So it's thicker through right here, and then it thins out a little bit. It tapers up at the top so that this part of the bat is a little bit thinner than this part, and it looks like a big, it fattens out here, which if you think about it, like this is where you hit the ball generally. You're not hitting it off the very end of the bat, so you want more mass there. But there's a sacrifice in that, everything off the very end of the bat is going to be weaker now. And then anything that gets jammed is going to just snap that bat in half. And we've already seen that happen. So there is a little bit of give and take to it. It's Fanatic. It's got nothing to do with being a Yankees fan. I would love to say that the Yankees are so far ahead of the field and we've developed an advantage and blah, 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 blah. Just is what it is. I mean, guys are, they didn't have, the next day you saw 37 different guys around the league were also using those bats. They didn't get those overnight. These guys, this has been a thing. So it's not, I know. But I'm just saying. Yeah, exactly. It's all around the league. Everybody's got access to these bats. And then guys like Aaron Judge is not using one. His comment was, you saw what I did last year. I think that speaks for itself. So, I mean, give those bats to the Phillies. Yeah, get one of those for Raffy Devers. So, jury's out as far as what kind of an impact it's going to have. And some guys, I'm sure, will benefit from more solid contact, and we'll see the results. But as I was commenting to somebody who was on one of my text threads, he was like, oh my God, they're ruining the game. We got to get rid of this. It's got to get banned immediately. Blah, 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 blah. I can't believe it's legal in the first place. Baseball has been a push-pull of innovation and response for its entire 150-year history. Look through the history of baseball. They've raised and lowered the mound. They've completely changed the composition of the baseball numerous times. They've changed the composition and the rules about the bats. And the rules about bats are broad, right? Everything they're doing is within the limits. Nobody was pushing those limits. Now they are. So there's always been those things in baseball. The fields have changed dramatically over the years, from what kind of turf you're on to the dimensions to, the commonality. For a while, people were just building cookie cutter parks that all looked the same, and then they went back to a lot of unique designs. So there's always been push-pull in baseball. Nothing breaks baseball. If it does angle things in a certain direction, the league will respond. The rules will respond. Not worried about it. Dimitri says, for the love of God, please stop using infielders as pitchers this year. Hey, Jake Bauers is one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. 2 scoreless innings against the Yankees. None of the Brewers starters could say that. Anyway, let's dive into this slate. Enough chit-chat. So, as mentioned, nothing here matters, but decided to just throw it up there on the board. Oh, what I do need to do, though, is grab that guy. I think that'll... Come on. Oh, that might be mistargeted now, though. Yeah, close enough. Just help us navigate a little bit. And let me resort that by DK. It's an interesting picture up toward the top of the board there that we'll talk about. I also added the implied run totals here to this screen, but we'll jump to the Vegas board real quick. A lot of 8-run totals. Nothing really running away from us. We did see a couple over the weekend get into the 9-run range, but right now, Cubbies and the Athletics at 8.5. That's an interesting spot. I was talking about that with our pal Emac as far as what the park factors are going to look like there. They are no longer the Oak Athletics, as discussed. They are the Athletics, just the Athletics. They're playing in a minor league stadium, AAA stadium in Sacramento for this season, and it's really interesting if you look at it. Going back to last week, I mentioned, and I think I dropped the link for the Park Factors article that Fangraphs put up about this park and about Steinbrenner Field in Tampa Bay, where this game is taking place. So, talking about Tampa Bay, I already addressed it last week, but just to do it again real quick, the park is the exact same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. It's the Yanks minor league stadium down there in Spring Training Complex. So they made it the exact same dimensions. When it's going to play extremely differently is once it starts to really warm up in Florida. That's going to be, if not the best, the second or third best hitters park in baseball. Right now, all I did for it was give it the park factors that we have here in New York, and I figure that'll suffice until we warm up by a few more degrees. Then I'll change it. We'll tweak it for a little bit of additional upside. This one in Sacramento, per that Fangraphs article that factored in air density, which is kind of the most important thing when it comes to park factors, it turns out, rather than dimensions and altitude and so on, or altitudes impacts air density, but you get me. Ranked out like it would be kind of mid, like no real advantage, kind of a neutral-ish kind of park. If you look at just, and this is what got interesting in talking to Emac about it, he pulled all the Pacific Coast League stats as far as runs scored, total runs for, against, etc. over the last, I think he did 4 or 5 years. It's probably in his article, I would imagine, if he wrote one over at Stochastic today. Probably worth checking out. But what's interesting is that park and that team ranked at the very bottom of the league by a pretty significant margin. So it makes it look kind of like, oh, maybe this is like a pitcher's park. But you have to remember it's the PCL. And the PCL, a lot of those fields in that league play like Coors Field Light. It is a extremely, extremely hitter-friendly league. The other factor as far as the home run scoring in that park, it's been the AAA home of the Oakland Athletics. So you only have had so much talent going through there. And then there's another wrinkle that a lot of organizations don't put their top pitching prospects into the PCL for those very reasons, because those parks can be so damaging. So there's so many crazy factors going on with this ballpark. I kind of just left it neutral. And I think that's appropriate for right now until we really get a good look at it. So I think Vegas might be goosing it a little bit, but I do really like the Cubs side of this one. Where I'm saying that is more on, I kind of like Ben Brown, the Cubs starter, up against what has been a frisky A's lineup that I told you at the beginning of the year we would be talking about all season long. And so far they've lived up to it. I kind of like the Ben Brown side of that. I kind of like the Cubs bat side of it. That total feels like it got just Vegas a little bit maybe excited about the, it's a minor league park of it. I would have put that total more up on that one, but that's Pirates Rays. Anyway, a couple juicy run totals. The Rays do have a biggie at 469. Definitely some interesting bats there. Brandon Lau's going to be one of the highest owned players of the day. Him taking shots at that short porch in right in Steinbrenner Field, going to be appealing all season, especially when it gets warm. Rays are going to be popular. Nats and the Blue Jays. Blue Jays are pulling a ton of power. We'll talk about that in a little bit. 4.5 run implied total there. A lot of home favorites. 4.41 implied total for the Cards going up against the Angels. I have the Angels pulling a little bit of fantasy quality, though. Again, that lineup's going to continue to shine in our projections for a little bit, and then it'll probably crash back to earth if they don't actually perform. Giants at the Astros. Interesting one there. The Giants under a 4-run total. 4.21. Not exactly a stellar total on the Astros side. Playable, though. Guardians Pods. 4.22 on the Padres side at home. Upper threes on the Guardians side. Potentially an interesting spot to mine some pitching. Detroit at Seattle. A very exciting Jackson Jobe spot, maybe. We'll talk about it. 3.63 implied total for Seattle. 7-run total suggests that there's upside there. So we'll definitely consider that. And then it's Emerson Hancock on the mound for the Mariners. Not sure that we wrestle with that, but the Tigers only at a 3.44. That ballpark helps. So he's probably going to be on the board at least for SP2 considerations. Just talked about Oakland, and then wrapping things up with Braves and Dodgers at the end of the night. The Dodgers, heavy favorite, highest implied total on the board. Has them at the top of the stacks board. No strangers to that position. Yeah, power definitely favorable as far as right-handed hitters again in Baltimore. Yeah, that should help. Mountcastle, that should help. Mountcastle's the one I was most significantly calling out. Westberg was already doing pretty well last year. Mountcastle's the one that took the big dip. But yeah, it should help all the righties, just moving those left field walls back in. Don't really know why they moved them out when they had a bunch of good righties coming up in the system. Didn't really make sense when they did it a couple years ago, but should definitely bounce back. Tyler Glasnow, no real surprise up at the top of the board, 10-5, 10,000. By far the best pitcher on this slate, just in terms of name brand, in terms of overall talent. But you're paying for it. You're paying a healthy price for it, but you're offset by a pretty significant margin projection-wise. Only player above 30. Only player, no, we do have Ben Brown cracking the 15-point mark, so 2 pitchers above 15. Fortunately, putting Ben Brown with Tyler Glasnow on DraftKings looks pretty doable, with Brown coming in at 7,500 and a pretty solid projection there. 28-point projection on FanDuel for only 71. I like that spot. There's plenty of swing and miss in the Oakland lineup. He was a 28-ish% strikeout pitcher. We'll talk about it when we get to that game, but I think there's upside there, and I think it's maybe a little underappreciated by the field. Ronel Blanco. He's an interesting one. I consider him very much a mid-board type pitcher. 9,600, 9,000. He's the second most expensive pitcher on this slate on both sites, but he also projects out relatively well. Most of the other slates so far, we've had several pitchers in the 30s. We've had like a range from 28 to 35 with 7-8 guys in it. Today, that's not the case. So Ronel Blanco, given the nature of this slate and pitching against San Francisco, there's some upside there. I think he's going to get a little popular, though. Drew Rasmussen, playable against the Pirates for sure. 8,000, 8,500. Not a terrible price on the FanDuel slate. Projects out decently. Everybody, by the way, in their first starts, as we've looked at over the last few, we've got everybody in the 5 to 6 inning range or appropriate pitch counts. Michael Soroka, another interesting one. As I mentioned, Toronto pulling a lot of power in the model today and a fairly healthy run total in the mid-4s. Soroka was interesting. He's a former highly, highly regarded prospect from the Braves system. Had a couple decent years, but has been just racked by injuries. Found his way to Washington. Had a great start to his spring. Was getting all kinds of buzz through the first 3 spring starts. And then kind of tailed off. So I'm not totally sold on Soroka, but I'm kind of interested. By the way, in the projections upload, I did put it back to Mike so you don't get positional conflicts when you upload, or naming conflicts when you upload. At 65 on FanDuel, I do think that makes a whole hell of a lot work as far as stacking. 76 on the DraftKings board is very playable, but not as big a discount. And I prefer Ben Brown at 75, just going up against maybe not a worse lineup, but maybe some more strikeout upside for 100 less. But Soroka's at least one to watch. If he ends up coming out of the gate, if those final 2 spring starts were just a little blip, and he has actually picked things back up a little bit, he's going to be an interesting waiver claim. He's going to be an interesting DFS guy while he's still cheap. Jackson Jobe, their top prospect in Detroit, made the rotation out of camp. Great spot in Seattle, pitching in that pitcher-friendly park. That is a team we're going to be targeting all season long when they're in home games, that free-swinging Seattle club. They will have their days as far as an offense, and I expect them to be better than they were overall last year. But there's a lot of strikeouts in that lineup, just like there were last season. So I think Jobe's at least worth looking at. The guy who's pitching tomorrow, I think, is super interesting. I wrote him up on as a waiver pickup this week. Casey Mize, former first overall pick. He had a great spring. Had a rough season last year. Didn't find his strikeouts when he first came up. He missed a season with injuries, but he's looking dynamite right now. Love him for 2 starts this week in season long. He's going up against Seattle in Seattle, and then he's got the White Sox in Detroit over the weekend. So he was my top 2-start pickup guy. About to get there, Andy. I know it's a long wind-up so far. Where is he? Oh, I skipped right past him. My bad. Thanks for calling that out, Andy. I skipped right over him and went to Tyler Anderson. Yeah, Bowden Francis is the other interesting one on the other side of that Toronto-Washington game. Those guys both pitching against each other. It's funny, right after our draft in our first waiver period, I actually added Mike Soroka, and then I ended up dropping him. I forget who I think for the Luke Raley pickup that I made because I needed to fill first base maybe. And then just last night, I ended up picking up Bowden Francis just because he was starting for 2 starts this week. I'm not even going to play him, but I just wanted him in case he's good. The reason for that is he was dynamite his last 12 starts or so last season. He was one of the league ERA leaders. The underlying numbers were supportive, but not as exaggeratedly good. But he had a couple big strikeout games. So he's really, really potentially interesting. 87, 83, and a little bit popular in that spot, though. I'm somewhat skeptical. He had a really, really rough spring. Some of the pitching underlying stuff plus numbers on some of his actual pitches were still decent. So I think it can come through and just shake off the rust and be fine to start the season. But I also think he gave up 5, home runs in the spring. A little bit rough. So maybe that rust is bogging him down a little bit in the first start here. So if he's going to get popular and he's appropriately priced in the 8s, I don't know that I want to chase it that much. But we'll get there. We'll talk about it. Luis L. Ortiz, cheap, but going up against that low strikeout Padres lineup, not all that appealing. Jordan Hicks against that low strikeout Astros lineup, even though they've kind of underwhelmed to start the season. Again, not that appealing, but playable. Emerson Hancock against Detroit, I don't love, but again, the ballpark and the run total definitely are supportive of more upside than maybe is coming through the model there. 78, 8,000, you're paying about the full price for that you'd want to pay for Emerson Hancock, though. And then we get into just some ugly territory. Miles Michaelis, you guys know I think at this point that I never really chase Miles Michaelis. He's cheap if you want to go that route for SP2, maybe for some innings, but I like him better when he think he could actually go out there and eat 7 innings if he's going right. With a something of an idea that the innings might be capped here. I don't love it, and he doesn't project out well. Kyle Hart against Cleveland. There are Ks in that Cleveland lineup this season, as we've discussed. Doesn't really project out great. He's only 6,000 on DraftKings. Grant Holmes against the Dodgers is kind of a no, but I think he's maybe interesting go-forward-wise. Carmen Mlodzinski. I think you got to say that name that way, like with a Mlod into it. Mlodzinski. Now I just want to Dracula it. Carmen Mlodzinski, 6,000, 6,300. Again, just super discounted. Could make things work. There are some Ks for him in that Tampa Bay lineup. We'll give him a look. And then Joey Estes is kind of a no against that big total with a pretty good Cubbies lineup on the other side. All right, you go lie down, huh? Go lie down. We got a ways to go. I know you're excited to talk about Drew Rasmussen and Carmen Sandiego here. So Carmen Mlodzinski, we got a little track record on him. This is what I mean, by the way. You're going to have to tolerate some scrolling over today. You guys can see that, right? Hit the like button as we get started. Subscribe to the channel. The website is rotoscouts.com for those who are not familiar. Access to all of MLB projections, home run picks, top stacks, etc. is included, as is access to NBA projections, NHL projections for every main slate through the rest of the season and the playoffs. All in under $1 a day. Access to all of it. No per sport fees, no nonsense. Check out rotoscouts.com. Check out our guys over at acemind.io for sim and optimization needs as well. Promo code ROTOSCOUTS all in caps over there gets you 20% off your first month. So, Ledzinski, 4 games started, 50 2/3 last season, a 22% strikeout rate, 9+ walks, 3.38 ERAs, fine. The stuff plus mark is slightly above average. He didn't really allow much power, which is kind of coming through the model. Hasn't really allowed many home runs in a moderate amount of experience in the show. A few starts, 5 starts, mostly working as a reliever. Don't have too many innings on him. Don't really see all that much upside with the Rays pulling a healthy total with some decent upside from the park, favoring some of the left-handed hitters like Brandon Lau. But you can see the impact that those low home run totals that he's allowed in his limited innings so far are having in the model. We don't want to goose it too much. You could potentially give him a little bit more. It's coming through more in the fantasy projection than it is in the pure home run model for some of these guys. And then there's just small sample stuff for a guy like Jake Magnum. Probably a little better than 0.99 if he's hitting second. A little bit of early season bumps in the data there. But I definitely think we can look at some Rays. You can see 4.70. Again, the implied totals are here now. So that's one of the highest implied totals on the board, and we can definitely get into some Rays. Brandon Lau's going to be one of the most highly owned hitters on the slate. Now, don't pay attention to that. That is super old. I forgot I had to unhide all the columns here to drop those 2025 stats in. These are not accurate ownership numbers for today. Usually that column's just not even there. So Brandon Lau is going to be one of the highest owned players of the day. And rightfully so. Again, just his power taking shots at that short porch and right as a left-handed power bat, going to be super appealing. He's only 4,400 at second base on DraftKings, 3,100 on FanDuel. He's got a home run on the board already in 13 plate appearances this season, 231 ISO. Again, nothing that I'm talking about in the Purple 2025 actually matters. Last season, 21 home runs, a 229 ISO in 3/4 of a season, 425 plate appearances. Pretty similar numbers in 436 the year before. It's just missing time with Brandon Lau. He would be considered a much better, very, very good power hitter if he was just playing full seasons. 12.4% barrels, 44.7% hard hits last year, double digits year before. He's a high strikeout, medium walk guy. But against this pitcher, plenty of upside. Yandy Diaz at the top of that lineup is great. Hasn't gotten out to a good start this season in 14 plate appearances. Over 621 last year. He got on at a 341 clip. He hit 14 home runs. Pretty solid triple slash, 120 WRC plus. Year before, 330, 410, 522. Created runs 64% better than average. It's a dynamite leadoff hitter. For 46.29, you can always go to Yandy Diaz. If Magnum is hitting here for cheap, mix and match piece at worst in the outfield. 0 for 4 so far to start his career. Pretty sure that's his first plate appearances. An 8 WRC plus, but again, we're not dinging anybody for 4 plate appearances. Aranda, mix and match kind of a guy if he's hitting there. I don't love him hitting cleanup. I'd rather have a different bat there. It's a funky lineup that... see if we got a different version of this yet. Nope. What is early season? These projected lineups can get a little bit funky. I just want to see what. Yeah, Chris Morel getting into this lineup wouldn't shock me. Caminero moving up to one of these couple spots wouldn't shock me. Lau hitting second. This is kind of maybe a funky order. But Caminero's a really interesting bat and will be all season. 5,200 is aggressive already on DraftKings. Only 29 on your FanDuel slate. Over 10 plate appearances, he's out to a pretty good start. Few hits, he scored a couple runs, etc., etc. In 177 last year, he hit 6 home runs, had a 176 ISO, created runs 5% better than average, and it was a breakout in camp and is one of the most highly regarded young players in all of baseball. Call him a prospect, whatever you want. Just graduated kind of a prospect. So absolute ability to blast the ball. In the small sample last year, 11.5% barrels, 40+% hard hits. This year, that was 11.8%, 45.7% last year. I forgot I didn't add the StatCast yet for this year. I put the board up, but I forgot to add I forgot that there was other stuff over here. But Caminero, a true potential star caliber player. Right-handed bat, but not that it matters, especially against a pitcher like this. Danny Jansen, Taylor Walls, Johnny DeLuca down toward the bottom of the lineup, just fillers, spot filler type guys. They're all capable enough hitters at the major league level, again, especially against the Mladzinskis of the world, but nothing overly appealing, nobody to really go down to chase. It's just mix and match stuff to maybe differentiate your Tampa stacks as you go through. So you do want to work those guys in. If you're building 20 Tampa stacks across 150 lineups as one of the chalky teams of the day, then you do get to several shares of each of those guys. On the Pirates side, going up against Drew Rasmussen. Small samples from him over the last couple seasons as well. 4 starts, 28 2/3 last year. Had a 30% strikeout rate against just a 5.2% walk rate, but obviously not a lot of meat on the bone. 127 marked by Stuff Plus is pretty dominant stuff. 14.1% swinging strike rate. If you get more of a sample of something like that, definitely a lot of appeal there. Only 44 2/3 the year before, 26.6% strikeout. In 146 innings back in 2022, he only had a 21.4% strikeout. But what's appealing about him is, even if the strikeouts are more mid-20s than like 30% range, low walk guy, reasonable as far as runs, keeping runs off the board. The xFIP numbers support that that's real. The ERA is basically meaningless, but it's been under 3 in those samples each of the last 3 years. So a appealing pitcher with good stuff who's very, very good at keeping home runs off the board as well, I'll note. No home runs allowed in the 4 games last year. Just a 1.13 rate in that sample, and then just a 2.23 rate in a medium-sized season 2 years ago. Or 3 years ago now. So I think Rasmussen's playable. 8,500, 8,000 across sites. Projects out fairly well in a conservative innings estimate. He went 4 2/3, faced 18 hitters in his final spring start, allowed just 2 hits, struck out 3. He had struck out 6 of 17 hitters that he faced over 4 innings in the start before that. So I think it's reasonable to expect 5 innings and, a moderate amount of pitches, 80 and change pitches. So I think he's playable. Probably prefer it at 8,000 on the FanDuel slate than I do at 85, though, on DraftKings. There are plenty of strikeouts through here, so he could find a decent strikeout day in 5 innings. There are some decent Pirates bats, though, that you can consider. I love the idea of O'Neal Cruz in this ballpark. Just getting his power. We talked about him, and we will continue to talk about him all season. He is like my top pick for just a monster breakout season, and that's not a unpopular opinion. There's a lot of people saying that because he deserves to have that said about him. He's got a home run on the board already this season in 17 plate appearances, 273 ISO. He crushes the ball, 15.7% barrels, 54.9% hard hits last season. Strikes out a lot. Needs to learn to draw more walks. Has growth to do, like I've said a few times already this season. But so far, we're talking about a 471 on base despite a 182 average. That means he's walked a couple times. So that's a good sign. I'll get those rates and everything in there for this season once it truly matters. Joey Bart, solid catcher. I think he's a decent spot filler, 36-28 to back up a stack of the top 3 guys. That gives them a competent 4th man in a direct line. Then they've got McCutchen, who at worst is still going to get on base and flash power. 11.7% barrels last year. He's got a homer on the board in 13 plate appearances this season. Andy Rodriguez, interesting option at first base now, 2,300. Still a catcher on FanDuel, not that it matters. Same cheap price. Another kid who's got an interesting upside power bat. I don't dislike the Andy Rodriguez option for cheap later in that lineup. So I think you can mix your match your way down at least 1 through 7 with quality MLB players. Ryan Hayes, off to another kind of rough start. Makes a lot of contact. 18.9% strikeouts, 5.8% walks last season. So puts bat on ball. Just doesn't really see much for it. Good hard hit rates, weak barrel rates, doesn't really hit many home runs. Not a great fantasy producer, but a capable enough guy as a cheap option at 3rd if you need to go that route. I don't hate him there. But really, Pham, Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, and then any one of those four guys kind of in a rotation is kind of, if you need to define a core, it's those top three guys probably is your core. Pham, still enough of a fantasy contributor as far as his skill set. Weak start to the season, but he has stolen 2 bases. Going to hit 15-ish home runs, steal 15, 20 bases over the course of the season. So he'll be a playable guy and could give you a little bit more than that if he comes back to life a little bit. 2 years ago, 48.8% hard hits, 10.7% barrels. Brian Reynolds has always been interesting. Nothing really to talk about with his start to this season. Last year, put 24 home runs on the board, stole 10 bases. Year before that, 24 and 12. Pretty consistently in that general range. But this is the jewel of this lineup. Absolutely prioritize your O'Neill Cruz shares. Just a 5.03 in the home run model today, though, because, again, Rasmussen does have some data that he's a little bit difficult to homer against. Park is on everybody's side, and remember that work came in home games, not in this ballpark. So we're dealing with a different situation with everything Tampa Bay. Greatly prefer the Rays bats. Rasmussen over Mlodzinski. Rasmussen playable from right there on the pitching board. And a good matchup. Again, plenty of Ks there for him. The only thing I really question is what does the true ceiling look like if we're not getting much more than 5 innings. But that's the case for a lot of these guys. Mikey Soroka. 9 games last year. 79 2/3. 24.2% Ks, but walked an ugly 12.7%. The 4.54 xFIP almost identical to the 4.74 ERA. Stuff Plus didn't like what the arsenal looks like. 3.75% home run rate on a 9.7% barrel. Under 10% swinging strikes, just a 26.6% CSW. Year before that, in 32 1/3 in the show over 6 games. Weaker, even worse performance. So technically growth year over year in small samples. But we are talking about, again, a formerly highly, highly regarded pitcher. First round pick all the way back in 2015, toward the end of the first round. Not that really matters. 29 starts in 2019. It's going back a ways at this point. 2.68 ERA, a 3.85 xFIP. Was only moderate for strikeouts. 20.3% Ks, but had a very strong 20.3% to 5.8% strikeout to walk. So very solid with the idea of growth. He was 21 at the time, rocketed through the system. In the minors, he was more in the mid-20s as far as strikeouts. In small samples, he hit the upper 20s in a few stops. There's a lot of talent there. And this problem, at least in those first few spring starts this year, kind of went away. The stuff looks like it might be back. So I think he's at least interesting. But as mentioned, I did end up dropping him in the Dynasty League after picking him up. He would have been a 1-year keeper if it all worked out for $1, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I'll reclaim him if he goes well. But I don't have him right now. Cut him because the last couple spring starts kind of came back to earth. So there's a little shakiness here. 76.65, though. He projects out well enough for those prices, especially at that cheap FanDuel price as just a value dart, that I think you can play him. There's not a ton of Ks in this Blue Jays lineup. That's one of the problems. Everybody in the projected lineup under a 20% strikeout rate. So that's elite level ability to limit strikeouts. And they do have power showing. So it's probably a 1-for-1 situation where every share of Soroka I want a Blue Jays stack in another lineup. It's kind of that. Because you can see Bo Bichette at the top of the lineup at a 9+ in the home run model. 2 guys, Vladdy Guerrero, who is the home run pick of the day, and Anthony Santander at 13.59, way over the 10 mark in the home run model. And then it dips. This is a super top-heavy lineup, which is why I don't love stacking this team this year. We'll get there in spots. They've got a 4.50 total. They're easily on the board today, especially with that power showing. But to me, it's like an obvious 3-4 man. And those 4 guys, or it's the 3 guys at the top, and then maybe some Andres Jimenez. But those guys are super popular. So you're not going to be building anything that's different from the public without dipping down into the Will Wagners, Nathan Lukes, and Alan Rodens of the world. And it gets real weak down there. What you at least get is a discount. Some of those prices are pretty good. But it's going to be super common builds around the Blue Jays. You're going to have to get different with your pitching, different with your secondary stacks if you make them your primary. I do kind of just like 3-manning an obvious Bichette, Guerrero, Santander. It's not even a bad price to do that. FanDuel-wise, your price comes to $3,400 a piece. If Bo Bichette comes anywhere near coming back to life, and so far so good over 18 plate appearances, you're talking about, a tier 2 star. 2023 hit 20 home runs, 306, 339, 475, a 125 WRC plus over 601 plate appearances. 2022, 24 homers, 13 steals, 333 on base, a 129 WRC plus in the leadoff role. He's a very competent hitter. He just fell apart last season in a half a season. 336 plate appearances, 4 home runs, 5 steals. Remember Corbin Carroll's first, 300 and change plate appearances from last year, and then the 300 and 400 that he put on top of that to completely change his season? You can't convince me Bo Bichette wouldn't have been capable of doing something like that in a full season. So I think it's easy to see it coming back, and so far so good. Like I said, 467, 556, 600 over 18 plate appearances that don't mean anything. Vladdy Guerrero Jr., superstar of superstars, no issues playing him at any price. Just go with it. Again, home run pick of the day today. Got a little chalky with it. Want to get one on the board I missed over the weekend. I was pissed yesterday. I had Christian Encarnacion Strand yesterday, but I originally had Matt McLean, and then I went, let's go with the more power hitter type guy as the overall pick, and I switched them, and I made McLean the pick from the Reds, and Encarnacion Strand the pick of the day. So I would have hit it if I had just left it alone. First instincts. Always got to go with them. Santander, monster power bat. I'm going to be getting pokes from the left side against a pitcher who I didn't really touch on it, but 3.75% home runs allowed, 6.21% home runs allowed in a small sample. So Soroka, gettable for home run power. Santander hit 44 last year, 28 the year before, 33 the year before that. There's a reason that they went and got him. There's a reason he was a popular call for GMs this offseason. Andres Jimenez, mix and match at second base, 38-31. Perfectly fine to start. He's actually hit their only 2 home runs, or at least in this projected starting lineup so far, but has not been a home run hitter over the past couple seasons. 15 2 years ago with 30 stolen bases, just 9 last year with 30 stolen bases, just a .087 ISO last year, just a 147 ISO in the year he hit 15. He was once upon a time supposed to be premium type prospect coming up. So maybe the power has finally arrived a little bit. We've seen that happen with guys in years past. He's at least a competent bat. He can hit a little bit. He can definitely swipe bases. It's a little weird having him hit cleanup, but he's an effective fourth man in stacks on either site. He's not expensive. He's perfectly reasonable to have at second base, too. You're not really burning a key position there. Alejandro Kirk, mix and match quality catcher, can strike the ball at an average hard hit rate. Results-wise, doesn't really strike out, so he does put bat on ball. He draws walks, so he can get involved as far as creating some runs, but he's not any reason to go to the Blue Jays. George Springer, down season last year, does look like he's off to a decent start, at least as far as the hit tool. He's got a stolen base on the board. That's important. Seeing him running again and just getting on base is probably the most critical things for Springer. We could see him rise in the lineup, and that would be dynamite to have him. If he comes back to life, this is a much deeper team. That problem about depth and being top-heavy kind of goes away, because then you could justify 6-man, and then you're just bolting on bottom-of-the-lineup type guys. So Springer, kind of a key bat for this team. And wasn't completely dead. The 9% barrels from last year is at least okay. Only 18.7% strikeout, so at least he's still not striking out up there. He's not flailing. He walked nearly 10% of the time. So I could see him roaring back to life a little bit. Wagner, 308, 462 in his 13 chances so far. He's created a couple of runs. He scored one, but has not done too much to distinguish himself. Last year, 50% hard hits, 9.1% barrels in his 86 plate appearances. Pretty good slash line, 2 home runs on the board. Again, mix and match type guy. Nathan Lukes is cheap. A little bit of lefty pop there. 1 home run last season, also 300, 371, 447 over just 91 plate appearances. And then Alan Roden, the rookie, 2,000, 2,200. If he's in the lineup over 12 plate appearances, he's got an RBI on the board so far this season. Hasn't shown a ton, but made the team out of camp. They're going to continue giving him chances, at least for now. 3 lefty bats in a row might not be the configuration they roll out with, even against a righty here. We might see this get mixed up a little bit, or somebody else step in. But right now, it's really, again, about those top 3 Blue Jays hitters. On the Nats side, Bowden Francis. So, full season of last year, Lone Wolf, good question. I mentioned him already. No spoil. I already spoiled it, but it's Ben Brown for me. And that's not even a dumpster. I think he's actually a pretty talented guy. And we'll get to that game a little bit later. But again, upper 20s strikeout rate against a free-swinging Oakland team. Even though they're showing pop, even though they've got some quality in that lineup now. I like that Ben Brown spot for those prices. And I think maybe that sneaks by the field. I hope. I haven't looked at his ownership number. And then if you're really, really fishing on FanDuel, you could probably get away with Soroka at 65. I'll probably try that in at least one lineup. I don't know that I would roll those dice. Ortiz does have a little bit of talent, but that Padres lineup, again, just devastating for strikeout upside. So as long as we're considering these prices bargain bin, I think that's the way to go. And as Lone Wolf points out, rotoscouts, $22 a month. Again, under $1 a day. He says it should be $30 a month. That would be $1 a day. We're under $1 a day. A pretty nice little discount there. Again, trying to keep as much in your bankroll as possible. Just enough to keep the lights on around here, Keep the site fees paid, which I got to... What's today? 31st. All right. I got to get that done this week. Site needs to be renewed. So, C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Luis Garcia Jr. off top of the lineup. Keibert Ruiz is out to a pretty good start. There's some confidence in these Nationals bats, and that's before we even get to Nathaniel Lowe, who's out to a great start. I am, as mentioned, skeptical about this Bowden Francis start. I think he's going to get a little bit popular. 8,300, 8,700. He's priced moderately, but for this slate, that's one of the higher overall prices. And a lot of it is coming off of, last run of starts from last year. For the season, 103 innings, a 22.5% strikeout rate, a 3.30 ERA with a 4.17 xFIP underneath it, a 5.4% walk rate. See if I can get those last starts numbers on the board real quick. Oh, come on. Somebody's got to have it. So the problem, as I'm looking for the final whatever starts number from last year, the issue with Francis is, maybe some of the gleam has come off the rose because of the 5 home runs that he allowed during the spring. So if he's not crazy popular for that, I would be more interested. But I think the field's going to be there because of the name recognition, because of kind of the short nature of this slate overall. There you go. Second half, 65 innings, a 0.6 whip, a 1.80 ERA. It's not the number I was looking for. Yeah, there you go. That's what I wanted. So in those 65 innings with the 1.80 ERA, the 0.6 whip, per Kirk Snyder, whoever this is on Twitter who just pulled it up, I didn't get to pull it out, but I should have. The xFIP over that same stretch, 3.89. Sierra, 3.57. So kept batting average on balls in play really, really low. Stranded a lot of runners. Had some bumps in the spring. So for me, it's very much about what the field might do rather than the pitcher in this spot. Let me see where he's at popularity-wise. Let's go to DK. And again, 5 home runs in the spring allowed is kind of concerning for anybody. Don't really sweat spring that much. But if you're just up there tossing grapefruits, it could be a problem. Mid-teens-ish kind of ownership on DraftKings. That's a frustrating number. It's like, that informs nothing about what I'm trying to get across here. He's fairly low owned on FanDuel, single digits. I'm going to say probably more appealing at the higher FanDuel price. And I think, especially given what the ownership has looked like in reality versus these projections, or not my projection, I don't project ownership, probably going to get overly popular on the DraftKings slate. I think I would maybe undercut field ownership on DK and go maybe above the field into the low double digits on FanDuel and create a little bit of an advantage on that spot. So both sidesing the Bowden Francis call today. But if you ask me, gun to my head, what do I do? What would I think happens with Bowden Francis here? I think you get an underwhelming performance and the Nats put a few runs on. Not saying he's going to blow up, but handful of runs in 5 innings ruins a DFS day. That would be my lean here. But I think as far as actual DFS playability, more so against the field on FanDuel than on DraftKings at the cheaper price where he'll be more popular. Nats bat CJ Abrams off the top. A multi-category contributor for power and speed, 52-32. Much cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DK. You can definitely go there on either site, but more appeal to the top of the Nats here. These guys definitely showing some power upside against Bowden Francis, who again, pretty rough spring for homers. Last season had a 4.17% home run rate. So there are plenty of home runs on the board here. 3.68 in relief work a couple years ago. Plenty of opportunity against Francis for some power. James Wood, one of their star prospects, came up last year, graduated, 336 plate appearances, 9 home runs, 14 steals. The power output was moderate, but the contact was terrific. 10.6% barrels, 52% hard hits. James Wood can put bat on ball with authority, so not just under the magic number in the home run model. I like the upside for the Nats bats here. Luis Garcia Jr., just an effective player, category filler, 3,300 at second base, perfectly fine at second base, especially hitting up toward the top of the lineup in with all the bigger bats. Keibert Ruiz, out to a strong start. He was also in the waiver pickups column. I've talked about him forever as far as his ludicrous contact. 11.1% strikeouts against 3.3% walks. That means it's just constant bat on ball out of this guy. But the problems has always been he doesn't really barrel the ball up. He doesn't really hit the ball all that hard. He's just out there making contact. He did manage 2 years ago to hit 18 home runs with that. Dropped to 13 at a much lower ISO last year. 149 down to 131, and neither of those is good. But the appeal about Keibert Ruiz has always been this ludicrous ability to put bat on ball and the fact that he's in the lineup basically every day as a catcher. If he's going to hit for a little bit of power, he's got 2 home runs on the board already this season. Maybe this is the bust-out year. He's still mid-20s. So that's a playable bat, especially where you need catchers for just 3,700. Kind of like that, especially if it's going to be going up against what we're saying is a not crazy popular, but mid-popularity play that might get more popular than that. Nathaniel Lowe, still just 3,300 on the DraftKings slate despite a hot start. Still just 2,900 on the FanDuel slate despite a hot start. Earning his keep as my compromise option at first base on the Dynasty team. Out of the gate with 2 home runs, a 538 ISO, a 321 WRC plus. Was he secretly the best player in baseball all those years in Texas? Probably not. But he's always been a competent guy. He's hit 27 home runs 2-3 years ago. Dipped in power over the last, that was 3 years ago. Dipped in power over the last 2 seasons. But if the power comes back a little bit from the left side, he's always been good at getting on base. Fairly strong hit tool. Relatively low strikeout, very high walk rate, 22.1% strikeout, 12+% walk rate the last 2 seasons. Really like Nathaniel Lowe for these prices in the heart of this pretty productive looking little lineup that the Nats have going. Josh Bell, similar kind of upside, mid-board power, low strikeout, lower walk rates, lower on base skills than Nathaniel Lowe, but similar power upside, same position, similar pricing. Pick your poison with those 2 guys. Or you can just rotate them through a number of national stacks. Paul DeJong, it's just power. Yeah, he's at 333, 400, 556 with no homers to start the season, 222 ISO. It's just about the power stroke with DeJong. He's cheap. If you need a cheap option at third base, shortstop, you can go there if you're stacking Nats, but he's nobody's idea of like a good one-off at those positions or anything. Dylan Cruz, another premium prospect for this team, has not really found it at the major league level yet. 132 plate appearances and a cup of coffee last year, 3 homers, 12 steals, just an 80 WRC plus. Has not gotten it going over 12 so far this year, has a stolen base on the board. Negative 75 WRC plus. That's not good. Jacob Young is just a pure speed guy down toward the bottom of the lineup. The on-base skills kind of need to come around. 316 was okay last year. Got on at 30, stole 33 bases with that on base. 13 steals with a 322 on base. If you could push that a little bit higher, have a lot more value as like a wraparound DFS option. Blue Jays bats. Forgot that I do this. See, getting back in the swing of things too. Blue Jays bats, Nats bats. Reluctantly, Bowden Francis, Michael Soroka, but I consider them probably closer options than maybe the field does. You kind of see that in the projections. Given the lack of popularity and the discount that you get price-wise on Soroka, you could easily flip that the other way. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't done it before. Rocket Sauce is here. Says, hi, Terry. Hope you've been well. So glad MLB's back. Me too, buddy. I have been pretty well. Hope the same's true for you. Welcome to everybody out there who's keeping quiet. 40 some odd people here watching. More catching up later on. We've gotten some good view numbers on the show so far. Gunn had a show yesterday and cracked, I think, 500 something views. I think he was one of the only games in town yesterday. I was kicking myself for not jumping on in the morning. I was like, damn, could have met some new people out there in the world. Check out his show too. Good dude. We are going to talk behind the scenes as everybody's clamoring for about getting together on some stuff. He's been in the Discord, too. He called out a Taj strikeouts prop over yesterday that was pretty profitable, I think. Angels, Tyler Anderson on the bump. Lefty, 31 starts last season. 3.81 ERA, 4.85 xFIP. The xFIP is the real number. Pretty high walk rate against a pretty low strikeout rate. He's a decidedly mediocre, crafty lefty type who's not all that crafty. Doesn't allow a lot of hard hit, but still a moderate home run rate at 3.14% last season. 7.9% barrels. He's just a fly ball pitcher, so some of those can tend to get away from you and get you out over a 3+% home run rate. But he is truly good at avoiding actual premium contact, which for some pitchers can come and go, and you can see Stuff Plus doesn't really like the arsenal all that much. So I expect him to be in that 4+ ERA type range over the course of the season. Going up against a Cards team that has been okay to start the year. They've gotten some production from some guys that maybe some of us were saying were going to be completely dead at the plate. Mr. Arenado strung together a pretty solid 13 plate appearances so far. We'll see how that holds up. Home run on the board for Arenado. 455, 538, 909 with a 455 ISO, 304 WRC+. Rumors that the swing speed is up a little bit. That was the key. That was what I was harping about. I'm thinking that it's still problematic. We'll see how any changes might hold up. But the fact that it was one of the league's slowest swings and one of the league's longest swings was really concerning in a big down season for the veteran last year. So I'd love nothing more than to be wrong about it and see him come roaring back. It's a player I really like. Get him while he's hot. Get him while he's cheap. 3,900, 3,000. If you're going to the Cards, you definitely want some shares of Nolan Arenado at this point. 441 implied total for the Cardinals, by the way. Appealing as a DFS play. They're not expensive. They rank out. Where do they rank on the value board? They don't rank great for fantasy points, and that kind of holds up. They don't rank great for FanDuel value. Where they really shine is as a value team on DraftKings. They're projecting out, despite being the 11th ranked team by DraftKings projections, they're ranking out as the number 1 team by points per dollar value. By the way, if you're looking at the top stacks tool, I added a column with the Vegas rank, the ranking of the implied totals, because I think that helps inform what the on the ground MLB situation of each game is, taking the fantasy points out of the equation. So I added that to the stacks board. So St. Louis for value, kind of interesting. Look at all these low prices. I mean, you can get a 3-man of Nootbaar, Contreras, and Arenado for $4,000 a piece. Probably could have mathed that out in my head. And then you're bolting cheaper guys onto it. And the first one that catches the eye down there is Jordan Walker for only $2,500. Walker, pretty strong start, over 8 plate appearances. He's had a few hits on the board. Again, none of the purple stuff matters. None of this year's stats matter. Rough year in the show last year. Really struggled. But again, this is a guy who is a former top overall prospect and was underrated for his performance 2 years ago. And I've been harping on this for probably the better part of a season now. 465 plate appearances. Everybody remembers that he was really bad after he had been like a late round sleeper, popular buzzy pick as a prospect, going to make the team out of camp in 2023. Fell apart early, got sent down, came back up, finished the season with 16 home runs. Creator runs 16% better than average. 276, 342, 445. It's a good player. Last season, it all fell apart. He spent time in the minors, only 178 plate appearances. It was ugly. I see no reason to not think this kid comes just absolutely roaring back to life. And his bat on ball numbers, his premium contact, was actually better last year in the small sample than it was the year before. There's upside galore with Jordan Walker. If you're going to cards, 2,500, include him. Same thing on FanDuel at 25. You want him in with those three guys. But again, they're more moderately priced up at the top rather than cheap up at the top. Relative pricing matters. Nootbaar, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, solid hit tool out of the top. 4,000, 3,300, very playable and a key piece in Cardinal stacks, assuming he's hitting leadoff. Wilson Contreras, one of the best catcher bats you can buy, full stop. Double-digit barrel rate, 46.8% hard hit last year. Rough start to the year. He's over 14 plate appearances. Again, does not matter at all. Arenado, only 39, 3,000. Good start to the season. Doesn't matter. Luken Baker is cheap. Does have some power appeal. 3 true outcomes type hitter. Last year, it was only 49 plate appearances. He did hit 2 home runs, 2 in 99 plate appearances 2 years ago, but pretty solid bat on ball in small samples of batted ball events. And then decent track record for upside for power in the minors. Somebody's text messaging me like crazy. If you're out there and you're watching and you're texting me, hello. It's just my idiot group text. So, Luken Baker, despite the 2 home runs in the show last year over those 49 plate appearances, can I sell you the 32 home runs that he hit in 452 opportunities at AAA? Can I sell you the 33 he hit in 2023 in 380 plate appearances in AAA? Now, this is a guy who's a quad A type player. He's not a prospect. He's 28 years old. So you got to take the good with the bad there. It's probably very much in the middle. I don't think he's a 30 home run hitter over 600 plate appearances in the show. But I do think there's at least an interesting power bat there if he's in the lineup. Going up against a weak lefty who can definitely give up some home runs as a fly ball pitcher, $2,300 Luken Baker, not a bad option if you're going cards. So power upside, it's showing through 8.22. He's the highest mark on the cards in the home run model. Herrera, the catcher, 3,100, 2,700, out to a very strong start as far as that bat goes, and he's got a highly regarded hit tool, 259 plate appearances last year, quietly 301, 372, 428, creator runs 27% better than average. That's a fantastic bat at catcher if he holds up anything close to those numbers. You know, a lot of buzz around Jainer Diaz for that kind of skill set. Herrera might be underappreciated at this point, and again, he is the kid who was once upon a time the heir apparent to Yadier Molina. And then Wilson Contreras stepped in for a little bit. Now it's Herrera's job, so tons of upside, cheap price. Talked about Walker, Brendan Donovan, a spot filler, multiple positions on both sides for a fair price. Competent bat at the plate, decent enough hit tool, can get involved for some run creation, but not a super appealing, nobody's idea of a star. He's just an average player. Mason Wynn showed a little bit of quality last season, playable at shortstop, 637 plate appearances, 15 homers, 11 steals, a 103 WRC+, but another guy who's much more an average type player than anything else, weak in terms of premium contact numbers. Victor Scott has a home run on the board and has stolen 3 bases in 12 plate appearances. We talked about him. He's stolen 90-something bases in AAA 2 years ago and completely fell on his face every time he's been brought up to the show so far. 155 plate appearances in the show last year, managed at 219 on base. There's a very strong chance that Victor Scott remains a Billy Hamilton-like, boy, we wish we could have him. Esteury Ruiz is a good example. Guy led the league in the AL in stolen bases 2 years ago. He just got DFA'd the other day by the A's. Victor Scott still in that side of camp for me. But good start to the season, had a very good camp. Also wouldn't completely shock if he hit a little bit, got by on his speed and some BABIP. But guys like this absolutely need batting average on balls in play to be on their side to provide anything at all. Angels going up against Miles Michaelis, a mix and match pitcher, which again, 171 2/3 last season, just 16.9% strikeouts. He's always going to give you an effectively low walk rate. but you can still dink and dunk him to death because he doesn't have great stuff. Just 87.24. That's 13 and change or 12 and change below average by Stuff Plus. He's just an innings eater. 2 years ago, 201 and a third in 35 starts. But mediocre numbers, 4.78 ERA, 4.76 xFIP, a sub 16% strikeout rate. There's very little fantasy appeal here. Even for a discount, even for price, I really don't see it. He did get out to 6 innings. 23 batters faced in his last spring start. He threw 5 innings, faced 21 hitters in the one before that. So, for a potentially, for a rubber-armed type guy, he's one of the more realistic options to get to 6 innings. This is that projection. It's Miles Mikolas. I don't think we're getting 7 and change, which is really where he needs that little extra bump to create any kind of bubble for value. I really don't see it. You could reasonably project him out to 23 points and not be crazy, something around there. FanDuel, 12 would probably be pushing it on DraftKings. Not a fan. And this Angels lineup has been bad to start the year, but I still think this team is better than they're going to get credit for, and I'm just more excited about it now because they're going to get less and less popular in gettable spots for DFS. So sign me up for some Angels upside, despite a 3.68 implied total. I don't really think that jibes with reality. I think Vegas, not to question the wisdom of the Las Vegas gods, as Steve McBride has said for years, they don't build those casinos by losing, son. They know what they're talking about out there, but that total seems very low. Mike Trout in the lineup, or Soler. I like this lineup. Taylor Ward and Nolan Schanuel are competent up at the top. Joe Adell potentially not in the lineup. Took a bump over the weekend. I forget what the actual injury was, but was reportedly already supposedly on his way back. So maybe not today, but tomorrow back in the lineup. Timmy Anderson at the bottom, 0 for the start to the season. Kind of problematic there for a guy who completely fell apart the last few seasons. I don't expect him to be on the team that much longer if he's in the lineup at all today. He's dead mid priced on FanDuel at the bottom, 2,600 at second base on DraftKings. You're just throwing darts at that point. Kyron Paris, dead mid price on both sites. He's at least got a home run on the board so far this year. You're probably leaning in that direction if you're looking middle infield from the last 2 spots in a lineup. But 1 through 7 is much more appealing. Going up against a pitcher who at least is going to allow these guys to make contact. If I just said, I'll give you a stack with Taylor Ward, Nolan Schanuel, Mike Trout, and Jorge Soler in it, and they're each going to be able to make contact with the ball, including foul balls and everything, 2.5 times a piece, you would want that stack against this pitcher, with those hitters being afforded some contact, some shares of just contact. So Trout, 5,500, 3,900. Yeah, he's expensive. Yeah, he's off to a terrible start over 12 plate appearances. It's Mike Trout. If Mike Trout is fully healthy this year, he will hit more than 40 home runs. Period. Nolan Schanuel, cheap, 36.28. Off to a mediocre start. Again, this year's start doesn't matter. If you haven't been here, we are not actually talking about small samples. I just put it there to have something to refer to. 13 home runs, 10 steals last season for Schanuel. An interesting 343 on base. If you're going to be doing that ahead of Mike Trout, that is going to create run scoring opportunities. You can't convince me otherwise. 25 home runs, 6 steals at 323 on base. A productive 111 WRC plus at the top of the board last season for Taylor Ward. He's only 46, 3,000. These guys are cheap. You get a 4-man with Mike Trout and Jorge Soler in it for $3,100 a piece on FanDuel. A little bit more expensive on DraftKings, $4,500 a piece, but still affordable. All of these guys make good contact. Well, 3 of those 4 of the 4 of those guys make good contact. Schanuel's got the on-base upside to keep the engine running from the 2 spot. Moncada can be an effective player. Once upon a time, going back even further than any of the other going back in time guys we've talked about so far, he was one of the most buzzy guys coming into a season as an international signing out of Cuba. Never really fully came together. He's had some competent years. Last year, just 45 plate appearances. Year before, 357. He hit 11 home runs, 98 WRC plus. Year before that, just 12 home runs, a 76 WRC plus over 433. But going back a little further than that, there was a little bit more production, but it's been not great. That's why he costs $4,100, $2,500. I think he's playable in the mix, a switch hitter. 5-6, somewhere in that territory as far as the lineup goes. But between the two, I probably would rather have Logan O'Hoppy's power upside. He's got a home run on the board already this season, over 522 plate appearances last year. He put 20 on the board with a 165 ISO from the catcher spot. I don't mind him for where you have to play catchers for just 3,500. 12% barrels, 46.3% hard hits. There's a true power bat there. And then Luis Rengifo probably should be hitting up here. You swap him with where Moncada is. I think that makes some sense, but I do understand why they would want Moncada's theoretical power behind Soler there. Last year, in a half a season, Rengifo, 300, 347, 417, stole 24 bags, hit 6 home runs. Really interesting player. 117 WRC plus. I also wouldn't be shocked to see him hit like here or even leadoff. Really, realistically, you should probably go Shanuel leadoff, Trout 2, Ward 3, Soler 4, Rengifo 5, O'Hoppe 6, and Moncada 7. That's probably the best version of this. Another team, kind of frustrating. You don't actually want Trout hitting third. It's old baseball thing. You want him hitting second. I mentioned it the other day. Turns out, after all those years, nearly a century of thinking that the 3 spot is the best spot for your best hitter. Nope. Turns out that's the spot that comes up the most frequently with 2 outs and nobody on. That said, Aaron Judge hit 3 home runs and I think drove in 9 out of the 3 spot the other day. So I do think the Angels are more playable and potentially a little bit sneaky. How do they actually grade out on my stacked board? Yeah, FanDuel especially. They grade out projections-wise as the number 3 team, just going by aggregate projections. But that's one of the reasons I have the Vegas number on the board now. By Vegas implied total, they're 11th. So there's a little discrepancy there. By home run upside, they're just 9th. Not showing a ton of power upside, but we know there's true power hitters in that lineup. But for FanDuel value, they come in 2nd. They're cheap enough on FanDuel. A little bit more expensive. They rank 8th by value on DraftKings. Soler kind of breezed past, no homers in his 12 plate appearances. Disappointing 21 last year with a dip under 200 by ISO. 262 ISO, 36 home runs. That's the real Jorge Soler. We may never see him again, but that's who he once was. I expect that guy to come back, at least relatively. This one goes... I guess given the Vegas number, I got to put the Cards bats on top of the Angels bats. But it's probably closer than Vegas thinks it is. I really don't have much use for either of these pitches. You can get away with cheap Michaelis for just eating some innings. Let's start on the Ronel Blanco side. As mentioned, one of the top projected pitchers of the day, 9,600. Starting the season pretty high priced for a guy who had a 4.09 xFIP quietly under his sparkling 2.80 ERA last year. This is the reason I don't really like Ronel Blanco. I know he was good last year. I really do. But we talked about it all season long. This is not that talented of a pitcher. 93.67 by Stuff Plus helps with that argument. Allowed a 9.3% barrel and a 3.25% home run rate. Otherwise, he was pretty good at limiting hard hit, limiting exit velo. But the fly balls that he allowed, his fly ball home run rate got up there a little bit. The 1.09 whip is BABIP based. You can see he walked double-digit hitters. 10.1% walk rate doesn't jibe with a 109 whip. That means you're getting lucky by BABIP. .220 last year. It's a low batting average on balls in play against. So he greatly benefited from some good fortune. He did have a 24.6% strikeout rate. You can't take that away from him. 12.9% swinging strike rate, perfectly effective. 28.2% CSW is fine. In 52 innings, 7 starts in 2023, he was not at all effective. Allowed an ugly 5.31% home run rate. There's a nothing sample going back further than that. So while I do think there's enough there to get through a Giants lineup that's got some Ks in it, I'm not in love with this spot. If he's going to get any kind of popularity at those prices, I would rather have a lot of other pitchers on this slate than pay up that much for Ronel Blanco. And let's see. Well, it looks like the field agrees on FanDuel, or at least per these. Again, projections. Couple big misses already over there. Oh, man. Wow. Ben Brown getting popular now. He was a lot less popular when I looked earlier. Looks like it's creeping up the board, so my value guy du jour is unfortunately, I guess, a little bit buzzy. Yeah, actually, you know what? As a pay-up to be different option, now that if these ownership numbers are remotely close to right, he's in single digits on both sites. So I'll unwind that a little bit. I still don't like the pitcher, but I actually think if single-digit ownership is the case, as a pay-up to be different option, you can use it. I think there are enough Ks there. He's a 1-in-4-ish type strikeout guy, and their 22% rate includes a 13.6 last year from Wilmer and an 8.2 from Young-Hoo Lee. Everybody else in that lineup strikes out at least at a fair clip. 25.5 for the rest of that lineup. So pay up to be contrarian, Ronel Blanco. Otherwise, don't really like the pitcher all that much. Think he's very, very average. Giants bats against, you can get away with, especially given some of the home run history against. Seeing fair home run marks for basically everybody in the lineup. Lamont Wade off the top of the board, 3,900, 2,600. 0 for the season so far, but a stellar on-base option over the last few years. Dynamite run creator, a little bit of power a couple seasons ago. Dipped in power last year, but still came away with 9.4% barrels, 43.7% hard hits. The walk rate the last 2 seasons has been ludicrous. Despite a few more strikeouts last year, he still had a 380-something on base. Love him as a table setter, like the power upside, and he's very cheap up at the top of the board, particularly on FanDuel. Willy Adames coming off a career year. Nothing to speak of so far this season. Just 4,500, a little bit cheap on DraftKings for what the upside looks like. 12% barrel rates each of the last 2 seasons. We know there's tons of shortstop power there. 3,500 is fully priced on the FanDuel slate, but at 9.60, he does lead the Giants in the home run model. Last year, 32 homers, 21 steals. Excellent season with a 211 ISO creator, runs 19% better than average. Young-Hoo Lee just going to be a low strikeout, heavy contact, kind of Keibert Ruiz type, but does have a little bit more ability to strike the ball. 41% hard hits in a small sample of 158 plate appearances last year, but much more likely to be a solid average doubles hitter type of a guy. A Jose Miranda type, somebody like that. But effective. You can get away with those guys when they're in the heart of a top part of a lineup, going to see a lot of plate appearances and surrounded by guys who will get on base for them to knock in and guys who will knock them in once they've achieved their goals with their hit tool. Matt Chapman is one of those guys. 12.6% barrels, 48.2% hard hits last season, 4,200, 3,300. Great buy on DraftKings. He is cheap against a homer-prone pitcher. He's got a homer on the board already this season. Absolutely rocks the ball. Remember, if you were here last week, I pulled up a StatCast board that had that little island of guys with really interesting swings that was all guys around Shohei Ohtani. Chapman's one of those guys. Matt Chapman is a true power bat. So love the idea of getting us some shares of him. Where was he? 4. He hit 17 last year with a 185 ISO. Year before, 27 with a 204 ISO. The results can come and go, but the power is real and the contact quality is real. Elliot Ramos, 2 home runs on the board already this season. Nice little breakout last year as kind of a disregarded prospect who was buzzy for a while, and then seemingly everybody kind of forgot about him going into last season. 518 plate appearances. He had 22 home runs, 200 ISO. Everybody who got him on waivers was pretty happy they did. Patrick Bailey, 3,400, 42% hard hits last season, 2,500 on your FanDuel slate where catchers matter a little bit less. A lot more playable as a DK $3,400 mid-board type catcher than he is on FanDuel. I don't really want him occupying my first base util spot on FanDuel unless I'm like aggressively stacking up Giants. He did hit 8 home runs in 448 plate appearances last year with a pretty weak ISO. 7 the year before. Not much to speak of there. Wilmer Flores, unless it's a lefty on the mound, I typically don't consider Wilmer all that much, but he's been better against both hands in recent years as far as the overall output. Last year, kind of a dead season overall, but 23 home runs on the board 2 years ago. He's got 2 already this season. We all know that Wilmer's just kind of a cheap mix and match guy, probably more playable for 24 with 2 positions on FanDuel than 29 with first base only on DraftKings. Mike Yastrzemski, solid little home run number at 6.17, solid little home run hitter. Hasn't done, 400, 400, 400. I guess we can't argue with that over 5 plate appearances. Again, nothing about this season matters yet. 18 home runs with a 206 ISO last year. 15 home runs with a 212 from the left side. Part-time hitter in a platoon role, going up against a homer-happy righty from the left side. Kind of like the upside for Mike Yastrzemski here, quietly toward the bottom of the lineup. Any spot that he moves up the lineup just makes him look more appealing. Paddock getting shelled? Well, there goes that. Damn it, Michael Garcia hit a home run? Fuck. I was so torn. I was torn between him and Victor Robles. I talked about Michael Garcia. I actually wrote him up in the waivers article. I really like his upside, but I put him on the bench again this week for favoring Victor Robles. Damn it. If the power for him comes around this season, it's going to be a good fantasy contributor. Already was a reasonably interesting fantasy contributor. Break up the White Sox, I guess. Astros, we kind of know this team, at least 1 through 6. Nothing totally unfamiliar. Fairly good start for Altuve in terms of the hit tool, getting on base and setting the table. Only 1 run scored means that the guys behind him have not been doing their jobs. His WRC plus is at 184. The following guys, 57 for Isaac Paredes, Jordan Alvarez at just 79, a negative 64 for Christian Walker in a tiny sample. Jainer Diaz at just a 22 WRC plus. Nobody's been doing their jobs to drive Jose Altuve in, but he's been doing his up at the top. No homers for him yet, no steals for him yet. He will contribute in upper mid type levels in those, 20-ish home runs, 20 plus stolen bases. Still a very good contributor, 51-35, affordable up at the top. Isaac Paredes, as long as it's a game played in Houston or a few other exclusive parks with short left field porches, friendly to his home run swing, perfectly fine to go to. 4,000, 3,000. He hasn't done much so far in home games, but it's only a matter of time before he pokes one over that short porch, over the wall in left field. This would have been the best home run park for him last season. Jordan has not done much so far this year. Disappointed as a home run pick in a good spot the other day against Griff Canning. But one of the superstars of baseball, one of the best hitters in baseball, hit tool, on base, upside for power galore. 14.5% barrels, 49.7% hard hits last year. Better than that the year before. Monster home run hitter. Just needs a fully healthy season. 635 plate appearances last year. Basically had that. Don't know why I said that about Alvarez. Scratch the fully healthy season part. He's been healthy. Yeah. 35 homers, 308. 88 and 86 in the counting stats department as far as runs and ribbies. Kind of disappointing. Not that we get into those because those are just opportunity based. Has very little to do with the actual hitter. But those are kind of underwhelming marks for such a good hitter over that many opportunities when he was going well. But again, that's got a lot more to do with guys in front of him than actually him. Christian Walker at 45-34. Another guy out of the gate kind of slow in his new home. Last year, 26 home runs, a 217 ISO. 251, 335, 468. 33 home runs the year before was a little bit better in terms of limiting strikeouts that season. 19.2% Ks, went up to 24.1 last year. But the walks are always strong. So even if he's striking out, he's still very, very effective. But you'd love this to dip back down by 5 percentage points, and that would be right in line with the theme here in Houston. Everybody basically, except for a couple outliers at the bottom of the lineup, all their key bats, sub 20% strikeout guys. That's why you don't really like the upside for Jordan Hicks. In 20 starts last year, Hicks just had a 20% strikeout rate, 4.10 ERA, a 4.34 xFIP, nearly a 10% walk rate, moderate swinging strike rate, a bad CSW mark. As a reliever, he was a much more effective strikeout pitcher, 28.4% Ks, but an 11.2% walk in that sample. So the walks came down slightly, but were still high, and the strikeouts basically went away. I don't really see that coming back, definitely not today against this Astros team. So I think I would greatly prefer the Astros, and I don't think we're going Jordan Hicks for 77-81. Doesn't project great, and don't even really like it as an SP2 option on DK. Continuing on through the Astros, though, Jainer Diaz, again, tons and tons of upside, an excellent, excellent hit tool to be able to put at catcher. 4,200 catcher and first base eligible on the DraftKings slate. Sign me up. 2,900. Catcher eligible on FanDuel, again, doesn't really matter. You can put him at util with Christian Walker at first base. You can swap back and forth between those guys however you want to utilize them. They are highly, highly playable together. Diaz has power upside. He hit in a half a season 2 years ago, hit 23 home runs in 377 plate appearances, 16 last year, but was excellent for the hit tool, excellent run creation, doesn't really strike out much, doesn't draw many walks, so a lot of good bat on ball, high quality bat on ball. Jeremy Pena is just an average player. He's got a home run on the board already this season. Fairly average numbers, over 650 last year, 15 homers, 20 steals, an exactly average 100 WRC+. Cam Smith, power hitter, made the team out of camp, has not done much to reward them for giving him that job. Has gotten on base a little, 429 on base over his 7 plate appearances. Again, doesn't matter. Brendan Rodgers, we know, mix and match quality at best. Jake Myers, same thing at the bottom of the lineup. Astros bats, reluctantly Ronel Blanco, just because he's not going to be popular. Again, that's more DFS, popularity pay up to be different thing. I really don't like this pitcher that much, but I do think he could tap dance his way through cleanly enough and find some strikeout upside. So if he's not going to be popular, you can pay those prices, but he's expensive. And then really no Jordan Hicks for me, and I think you can get away with some cheap Giant stacks as a contrarian option. Halfway through, hit the like button if you get a chance. Could be Trav walking in. What's happening, Team McB? Glad to have you back breaking down a baseball slate. Yeah, buddy. It's been so much fun getting back. That was the other reason I should have done a show on Sunday. I just enjoy it. I was sitting here. I was like, I could do a show, but I could also set up the NBA board for later. By the way, NBA, NHL projections, if you're looking for those. Holy shit, it's almost 3 o'clock. Okay. We'll go through these maybe at a little bit better of a pace. I didn't realize we were an hour and a half in already. So yeah, they'll go up after this show. So somewhere 5 o'clock-ish for NHL and NBA. Only a 4-gamer in the NHL today, but I got to get NBA taken care of. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, rotoscouts.com, under $1 a day for access to all of those projections I just mentioned. Guardians, Padres. Guardians with a 3.87 implied total, visiting the Pods with a 4.22. Kind of a low-end game in a pitcher-friendly park. I would say probably in terms of the park, in terms of the experience, favors Luis Ortiz a little bit here. 19.2% Ks over 15 starts, 135 and 2/3 last year, 3.32 ERA, stuff plus reasonably effective in terms of what the shape of the pitches actually looks like. The xFIP kind of betrays his quality there. The lack of swinging strikes, the lack of a solid CSW kind of jibes with the low strikeout. Probably would end up walking some more if you give him more innings. Give up barrels but not home runs. Kind of suspicious there. I don't love this option against a low strikeout Padres team that's flashing some power, at least in a few key spots. So I think we're leaning more Padres bats, but at 68, if you need the value dart on DK, I think he's playable. He projects out okay. You're just going to hope for 5 clean innings and a win at that price. I don't think there's many strikeouts. If you come away with 4 Ks and no runs, that is a monster start for Luis Ortiz in this spot. He did make 6 spring appearances. Got out to 4 innings, faced 19 hitters in each of his last 2. Gave up earned runs in every spring appearance. Didn't really strike out that many spring hitters. So, is what it is. Kyle Hart, I accidentally seem to have grabbed a game log from 2020. Let's get him back on the board here. That was his one major league season. He was in the KBO last year for the NC Dinos. I assume they're still the Dinos. 157 innings in the KBO last season. 28.8% strikeout rate. 6% walk rate. That's as a 31-year-old lefty. And anybody familiar, if you were around for the KBO years, basically plays like something between AA and AAA. It's like a 2.5. Somewhere in that territory, I would say. So marginally competent MLB pitchers tend to excel when they go over there. And then some guys come back and bring it with them. Others don't. Primarily, they don't. He was in AAA in the Seattle system for 18 starts in 2023. 4.58 ERA with a 5.24 xFIP. And that's, again, as a 30-year-old in AAA. Struck out just 22-1 and walked 9.1%. So really don't think there's all that much meat on the bone here for Kyle Hart, even with these Ks that are available in the Guardians lineup this season. As we've discussed, radically different as far as everybody after the top two hitters, basically, with apologies to Carlos Santana in the 3 spot. But you've got a lot of extreme strikeout guys in this Guardians lineup now. So very different team, more power than they've had in recent seasons, but comprised of different types of players now. So I think there will be upside, but I don't think this is the guy you chase it with. Even at 6,000, 7,600, seems like a stretch. He made 2 spring appearances. This is the game log I meant to grab. 4 2/3 in his most recent, faced 20 hitters, gave up 6 earned runs, gave up 2 home runs, struck out 4. It was against this Cleveland squad, but not this Cleveland squad, their spring squad. I would not trust him as far as I can throw. So I think we're looking just bats in this one. And we've got competent bats on both sides. As mentioned, I like the power upside for the Guardians and going up against this Kyle Hart guy. We can definitely find some upside. Jean-Kenzie Noel springs to mind, 9.32 in the home run model for only 2,600 outfield and first base eligible on FanDuel, only 3,200 on DraftKings, 14.5% barrel. This guy is a monster in terms of power. He's going to strike out like crazy, and he doesn't really draw walks, so he's not even a 3 true outcomes type guy. He's just a raw power bat. But a 268 ISO in that sample. Hit 13 home runs in under 200 plate appearances, 198 plate appearances. Big Christmas is a very real power bat. If he develops any kind of plate discipline, could turn into more. But very playable at these prices at worst. Jose Ramirez is a superstar, going to be entrenched in the 2 spot and a priority in basically every Guardian stack that you build all season. I think everybody out there knows that. Extreme low strikeout rate at 12% last year, 10.6% the year before. He did dip a little bit in terms of the walks last season, oddly down to a 7.9% walk rate. Cut into his on base a little bit, but that still ended up at 335. He hit 39 home runs. He stole 41 bases. He is one of the best fantasy players in the entire game. Top 5 overall pick in basically every season-long league in the country. Fire away with Jose Ramirez shares in this spot. Steven Kwan, another home run on the board. Just weird homer output last year for Steven Kwan. Developing a little bit of a power stroke. He hit 14 last year while still going 292, 368, 425. Makes him slightly more interesting as a DFS option. And he's always been a fantastic table setter. He's gotten on in more than half of his 14 plate appearances so far this year. All systems go for Steven Kwan, midseason form, and only 4,400 on the DraftKings slate. Cheap, 3,400, appropriately priced on FanDuel. Lane Thomas, a good multi-category contributor. Not so far this season, but that doesn't really matter. Moderate home run power, a little bit of stolen base upside. Not ludicrous power, just 9.6% barrels, 40.5% hard hits 2 years ago. Dipped a little bit in the barrels department last year. Does strike out aggressively, draws only a minor, moderate average kind of walk rate, but a good competent hitter for the price. 4,100 is cheap on DraftKings if he's hitting third. 3,000 on FanDuel is effective if you're pairing him with these 2 guys and then any one of those guys. Same deal on DraftKings. These 2 guys and then any couple of those 4 guys. Or any 3 of those 5 guys, really. Carlos Santana is just going to remain a low strikeout, probably give you 20 home runs, draw his walks, be involved for run creation kind of a guy. Slow start to the year, but I'm not worried. I think we saw that last year if memory serves. Finished the season at 16.7% Ks, 10.9% walks, almost identical numbers year over year. Last season, 23 home runs in 594. The year before, 23 home runs in 619. Is who he is. Back in Cleveland, switch hitter, probably entrenched in the cleanup spot all season. Cheap, always going to be effective, always going to be playable. Never really going to be a priority, though. 7.02, kind of average in the home run model. Exactly what I described, right? Could give you that power upside, but it's moderate. Kyle Manzardo, off to a very good start. He's also in the waiver wire column. 2 home runs on the board, a 455, 571, 1273 slug, and 818 ISO. He's been crushing the ball so far. 40% barrels and 9.5% hard hits in his 156 plate appearances last season. He did hit 5 home runs, 186 ISO, moderate production otherwise, but the kid's one of their top prospects. fully expected to become a competent power hitter. 20-ish home run projections in most projection systems if you give him like 600 plate appearances. Upside for more than that if he continues to roll, obviously. And then development beyond into a fairly decent power hitter. The 2 home runs he's hit so far, the best news, they've both come against same-handed lefty pitching. So could this be number 3 lefty-lefty for Kyle Manzardo tonight? I don't hate his chances. 7.73 in the home run model. Bo Naylor, lefty-lefty, I like a lot less, but he's at least a playable catcher with some power upside at 2,800 on DraftKings where that matters. Much more skippable on FanDuel. Gabriel Arias, a mix-and-match player with a little bit of pop in the bat. 1 home run on the board in his 9 plate appearances this year. Didn't do much in 161 last year, just 3 home runs and a handful of steals. 10 home runs in 345 opportunities the year before that. A little bit more power pedigree than what has come through in the show so far. 4.96 in the home run model. You're just grasping at straws down toward the bottom of the lineup there. And then Brian Rocchio, not much of a fantasy contributor at all. Fernando Tatis Jr., one of the top marks in the home run model from the top of the Pods lineup, 13.07. They've been going with this bizarre Tatis ahead of Arraez configuration. I don't understand it. The idea of you want your best hitter to get the most plate appearances, sure, I get that. But Luis Arraez is not the kind of guy you want following Tatis if you're going to lead off Tatis. It should be probably Jackson Merrill or maybe Manny Machado. Probably don't want to go righty-righty with it. But this should be Jackson Merrill. And then honestly, Luis Arraez 3 makes a ton of sense. Because going back to what I said earlier, comes up the most frequently with nobody on 2 outs. But if you have a high contact guy in there who's hit 301 batting titles, that puts a guy who might then get on base for your cleanup hitter, who would in that situation probably be Manny Machado. It's just a weird construction that they've gone with early. But Tatis is an absolute super duper star. He's got 3 stolen bases on the board already. I mentioned it the other day. He said specifically, I feel 100% healthy this season. I am going to run again. And he's got 3 already. He's got a home run on the board, 267 ISO. Last year we dipped 438 plate appearances, just 11 steals despite the 340 on base. Year before that, 25 with 29 stolen bases and 635. I like him to crack through both of those marks this year in a full season. So love the upside any given slate. Monster power mark way over the home run magic number. Manny Machado also over that mark. 10.11 in the home run model for under 5,000. 4,700 at third base. Works for me. Sub 20% strikeouts, still an 11.0% barrel, 48.8% hard hit rate out of Manny last year. 231 ISO to start the season in his 14 plate appearances. He's driven the ball a little bit. 29 homers last year. You could argue there's a little bit of a downturn, but it's not significant. Merrill, again, starting out the season fairly hot, coming off of a runner-up Rookie of the Year campaign, 24 homers, 16 steals last year, 208 ISO, 130 WRC+, plus, an absolute star, 52.36, perfectly appropriate pricing. Cronenworth, I'm not a huge fan. Has a home run on the board. Started out last season hot after I said I wasn't a huge fan and railed against him at the beginning of the year because they were hitting him up toward the top of the lineup. In this kind of a role, I think he's more effective. 17 home runs last season, had a 149 ISO. Was okay. He was competent, but not necessary. Xander Bogaerts, kind of excited about the start. A lot of buzz, as I've mentioned on shows so far, about being in the best shape of his life, moving back to shortstop, et cetera, et cetera. What I like the most so far about the production, he's always gotten on base. He's always been able to drive the ball effectively. But the 2 stolen bases so far are nice. If he's going to be on base and running, that's going to be a productive fantasy player all year. He's always, except for basically last year when he dipped a little with his wrist injury, he's always been a good OPS guy. Very strong on base numbers with enough in terms of the slug. So I really like the upside in a go-forward basis for Xander Bogaerts. He's never struck out much, 17.1% Ks, 6% walks last year, so a lot of bat on ball out of him too, and high-quality bat on ball when he's not just getting, or that helps him get to first base, I should say. Really like the upside for Bogey. He's not high-priced at all. Gavin Sheets, Jason Hayward, Martin Maldonado leave a lot to be desired down toward the bottom of the lineup. Any one of those guys could hit you in any given slate home run. They all rank around 5 in the model. Gavin Sheets has 1 on the board already. He'd probably be my favored pick out of those 3 guys. if you need a cheap catcher, we all know what Martin Maldonado every now and again does from the 9 spot as a near mid-price catcher, but he only did it 4 times in 147 last year. 15 times in 407 opportunities 2 years ago. Padres bats, Guardians bats, fairly close on the board in terms of how I would rank them together. And really neither pitcher, but if I had to take a pitcher, it would probably be Luis Ortiz. Michael A. Our guy Michael A. put one on the board against Paddock. Total meltdown by him, huh? Jesus. It's 7. Oh, my God. 9-0. Whew. Against the worst team in baseball. Apologies to for getting that quick analysis wrong. I thought saying Chris Paddock against the White Sox would be a fairly safe spot when I was asked quick thoughts on the early slate. Apologies to our guy Arcathelza. Hopefully he didn't go Paddock there. Man. Tigers, the prized rookie on the hill, Jackson Jobe. Made 2 appearances in the show last season through 4 innings. 21 starts in the minors. 2 of them came in AAA. 16 of them came in AA. Started the year in High A last year. Finished the season overall for the minors for the full stretch, 25.6% strikeouts. A little bit of a walk issue, though, 12% walks. As he went up, that went up. You know, as he climbed the ladder, the walks went up. A little bit of a home run issue in the tiny sample at AAA, but it was not at all a problem. He was actually excellent at limiting home runs in the largest sample, which was at AA. And again, that was also a promotion. Very strong spring starts. Got out to 4 innings, faced 17 hitters. I've just got him on a 5-inning projection today, but he grades out pretty well. The issue, I think, is the site's kind of priced him for being like a buzzy, highly regarded, drafted in season-long kind of a prospect. He was the 3rd overall pick back in 2021. I like the strikeout upside. Again, my issue is more with like this is right in line. We're not getting an advantage on the play. It would have been nice at least for his first start here in a really good opportunity in a pitcher's park against a free swinging team with a 25.7% projected strikeout rate for this lineup or strikeout rate from last year for this projected lineup. It's a great spot. I'm going to be ranting and raving at you guys tomorrow about Casey Mize when he comes into this spot at like 6,000 or whatever he's going to be priced at. That's going to be the spot. That's where we're going to get our true advantage. I think Jackson Jobe is highly playable here. I think he could go out and give you a 30-plus point, 15-plus point start in 5 and change. But he's got to be on point in his first full-fledged start here. So at those prices, I don't completely love it. I think he's probably like 1,000 too expensive. But a very, very talented kid. Again, in a great spot matchup-wise. These guys are aggressive free swingers. There is power here. None of it's really come through so far. They've got 3 home runs on the board for this projected lineup. They don't really have good hit tools. The on-base skills are shaky at best for most of the guys in this lineup. Just a lot of aggressive strikeout rates. So Jobe could go get it. But I question the innings, and the price is impactful there. On the Mariners side, Emerson Hancock coming in at 8,000, 7,800 against a growing Tigers team with a little bit of pop, some interesting bats. Hancock, kind of a mediocre pitcher with a very low strikeout rate. I don't think we're getting anything at all to speak of here for fantasy. In 12 starts last year, 60 and 2/3 innings, he had a 14.7% strikeout rate, 4.75 ERA with a 5.24 xFIP, 4.50 ERA with a 5.07 xFIP with a 12.2% strikeout rate in a tiny sample 2 years back. The reason Hancock's here, by the way, he's not your typical Mariners starter. They've got the best rotation in baseball, in my opinion. George Kirby on the IL to start the season. So that's why Hancock's here at all. In AAA last year, just to put a point on it, 17 starts, 94 and a third innings, pitching as a 25-year-old in AAA, 3.43 ERA, but a 5.64 xFIP, and just a 16.7% strikeout rate. So even if he succeeds here and gets through 5 clean innings and gives the Mariners the opportunity to win and comes away with a win at 8,000, at 7,800, with no strikeout potential, I just don't see it, even against an aggressive free-swinging team like these Tigers. I just find it hard to believe that that's suddenly going to translate into Emerson Hancock striking out 7 guys. So give me the Tigers upside in that equation. If Gleyber Torres is top of the lineup, he came up hurt the other day. I forget exactly what happened. Missed the Sunday game. We'll see if we get him. 3,200, 4,000 I think is a very good price for Gleyber. You guys know I like this player. He's got a home run on the board already in 8 plate appearances. He already stole a base this season. He was okay last year. Rumors of his demise were somewhat exaggerated. Still got on base at a 330 clip. Still hit 15 home runs. Everything else is acceptable from a middle infielder. The ISO went away, but he was still a positive run creator for the Yanks last year in 665 plate appearances. I would have brought him back, especially since they don't have a third baseman. Just bring Gleyber back, have him at second, Jazzy at third. Do I have to do everything myself, Cashman? 25 home runs, 13 stolen bases in 2023. A lot more effective season. I was super excited about his growth that year. Talked about it a million times with you guys. Cut the strikeouts down to 14.6% and pushed his walks way up. That kind of reversed course in terms of the strikeouts last year, but a 20.5% strikeout rate is still very, very good. So Gleyber Torres is a good player. Just the production waxes and wanes a little bit for people who maybe expected him to grow into like a superstar. But give me him over the Nico Horners of the world every single time. Over the Ryan Blisses and Dominic Moores of the world on the other team. There's much more upside for Gleyber Torres. Especially hitting ahead of Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Colt Keith. This is a growing and talented Tigers lineup. Carpenter, 12 plus in the home run model today. Doesn't have one yet. Love his chances to get one here. With all the contact that's going to be available against a guy who can't strike anybody out. 16.9% barrels, 45.1% hard hits from Kerry Carpenter in 290-something plate appearances last year. 18 home runs in just 296 chances. And he also slashed 284, 345, 587. He's just good. Full season, Kerry Carpenter is a star. 4,200, 3,200. Get him while he's cheap. Riley Green, 47-33, also too cheap. Not a great start to his season over 14 plate appearances. 24 home runs last year, 217 ISO, 135 WRC plus, and 584. Kid's a burgeoning star. Spencer Torkelson is off to a good start. Has been all over the map after being one of the first overall pick a few years back. Looked like he was coming to life 2 years ago after struggling initially in his rookie year. 76 WRC plus, just 8 home runs in 404 plate appearances. That was problematic. Came back 31 homers, a 213 ISO, showed tons of growth, and then that kind of fell apart in half a season last year. 381 plate appearances, 10 homers, 155 ISO, got sent to the minors at one point. Home run on the board to start the season this year. They got to get production out of the big righty, so I still love them to get plate appearances season long. 3,500 at first base is super cheap. 2,800 is super cheap for a guy who still has monster power upside. 8.87 might be a little low in the home run model if we get the real Spencer Torkelson. Colt Keith, 2,800, 2,500. Another guy who's just a formerly highly regarded prospect, one of the top prospects in baseball a couple years ago at second base. Playing first base this year, first and second eligibility on both fantasy sites. Over the season so far, problematic to start the year. Only 13 home runs, moderate production otherwise last season. Highly playable option for cheap, especially if you're stacking up Tigers. I think he's a reasonable enough one-off at second base, quite honestly, at those prices. I expect Colt Keith to produce this year. Zach McKinstry, Jake Rogers, Trey Sweeney, and Ryan Creedler. Mix and match options at best down lineup. Rogers does have a little bit of real power upside. 9.9% barrels, 41% hard hits last season. Blasted 10 home runs in 337 plate appearances. Year before, 21 home runs in 365 was the number I was looking for. He's like a Martin Maldonado where you get any random slate, some home run upside, and much more likely a 0 in your lineup from limited plate appearances. But as a cheap DK catcher, if you're already stacking those guys, it's fine. He makes things work. Like if you went 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, he helps average down. Now you're getting Gleyber, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, and Spencer Torkelson in your stack with a homer-prone catcher for 3,800 apiece, 3,860. Call it 39. Pretty good price for a 5-man. On the Mariners side, Victor Robles off the top. As mentioned, I have him in my lineup. How many home runs has Garcia hit today? Don't tell me it's 2. I'm going to be so mad. Just 1, okay. I should have put him in the goddamn lineup. That was like the last thing I did before I started the show, too. So annoyed. That's going to bug me all week. And if Bowden Francis pitches well, it's also going to bug me that I didn't put him in. Anyway. So Victor Robles off the top. The start to this season has been bad, but his 295 plate appearances, as we've discussed last year, the beginning of this season, were dynamite last year after landing in Seattle. Formerly, in 2019, was one of the top prospects in all of baseball. Top 5 prospect in all of baseball. His 2019 was good. COVID screwed him up, had a couple down seasons, lost his job, landed here, and excelled last year. I will continue to go to Victor Robles if I'm going to Mariners. That said, I think Jackson Job's got enough that would probably just lay off the Mariners unless it's just looking to be contrarian if Job gets popular. In that case, Robles is in my lineup, as is Julio Rodriguez, 5,400, 3,500. Effectively priced. He's got a homer and 2 steals on the board early. We know that he's a star. We just want him to contribute, and we want him to get out to a good start this year. Cal Raleigh's just a homer bat, but at 4,300, you can fill him in at catcher on DK if you're stacking him up. 3,200, he's an effective enough power hitter to be playable at first base on the FanDuel slate as if he's just their first baseman. 15.4% barrels, 48.1% hard hits last year. He's just strikeout machine, but he's a 3 true outcomes hitter with the walks. Randy Arozarena has a home run on the board so far this season. Down season last year, but a decent enough power bat, mid-20s type home run power upside. 12.3% barrels and 48% hard hits 2 years ago. Took a pretty big dip in both departments last year, but draws his walks, can drive the ball. Definitely interested in him if I'm stacking Mariners. A cheap Lake Raley or a cheap Luke Raley. Either one of those things, I guess, would be fine. 2,500 first base and outfield on DraftKings. 3,400 first base only on FanDuel. They made a bunch of promises that he was going to get plate appearances against the lefty. They faced 2 lefties, and he hasn't started either game. But I expect him today because there's a righty on the mound. Fairly high strikeout, fairly low walk guy with a decent amount of power, good ability to drive the ball, a lot of speed. So if he gets on, he might be running. He is a category filler. But I don't love it. And again, I kind of want to at least give Jackson Job a little bit of healthy respect here. So I don't really love it. But if you're stacking Mariners, I would definitely at least have him on the short list of Mariners to include in that lineup. Jorge Polanco out to a good start over his 11 plate appearances with a home run on the board. Mix and match caliber with maybe a little bit more upside than that. 2 positions on both sites is nice. Fairly priced for his production. Formerly a decent mid-grade type power hitter. I think we could get away with Jorge Polanco more than is appealing here. But you can see 13.8% barrels 2 years ago. A lot of strikeouts, though. Rowdy Tellez, mix and match option if he's in the game at first base. Lefty bat with a little bit of theoretical power upside. A lot of Ks, limited walks. Actually, only 21% Ks last year, 24.5% the year before with actually some walks. I'll unwind that a little bit. Maybe Rowdy's not the strikeout problem, but not a totally effective guy. But he is cheap at first base. So if you're chasing Mariners, maybe you go that direction. But it's really about the 1 through 6, I think, with these guys. And then maybe you can get away with bolting J.P. Crawford on as a wraparound guy from the bottom. I know Ryan Bliss is the guy who's actually stolen 2 bases so far this year. Neither guy's getting on base at all. I'm sorry. I misremembered Crawford. Crawford doesn't steal bases. Never mind. It was just the on base from 2 years ago that I was remembering. He got on base at a 380 clip from the top of the lineup 2 years ago, but only stole 2 bases. He was just a much better player that year. So forget the wraparound thing. He's not going to be appealing, especially if he's not getting on base. But it was just misremembering the skill set. So if you're stacking Mariners 1 through 6 with a loose stretch to 7 for cheap pricing, these low totals are definitely more about the ballpark than they are about these pitchers, I think. It's kind of anti-Vegas, but I think I'm leaning more Tigers bats, Mariners bats, and then definitely Jackson Job over Emerson Hancock if you're going to go that route. I do think, again, Job has the opportunity to be very effective here, but I think the price is a little bit high and I think people are going to go there. This is the guy I was hoping would sneak past the public, but I guess not. He's projected out for some ownership now, but I'm still going to go to it. I think this is a really interesting spot. I think the Vegas total may be a little bit high on the athletic side of this one, just giving the ballpark more credit for being a minor league park than what the park factors might actually end up being. But the jury's very much out on that one. I addressed that back at the beginning of the show, and we do need to make up some time. So Ben Brown made a couple, I forget whether it was 1 or 2 appearances in the Tokyo series. I think it was 1 appearance where he went 2 2/3 in long relief. Struck out a handful of hitters, but also walked a handful. What I'm interested in, though, 55 1/3 last year, 8 starts, 3.58 ERA with a 3.63 xFIP, perfectly effective there. The thing I'm most interested in, 28.8% strikeout rate in that sample, and a 13.5% swinging strike rate with a 32.4% CSW. That's a lot of whiffs, and he's a good strike thrower. 8.6% walks. I'll take some walks with that kind of strikeout ability. Gave up a lot of hard hits, gave up a lot of exit velo, but it didn't really burn him, didn't turn into too many home runs. This number changes and goes up dramatically if any of this continues. That's a lot of hard hit, a lot of exit velo on a fly ball trajectory. Got a little bit lucky to limit home runs like he did in that sample last year. It's just not a large sample either. But Stuff Plus really likes the arsenal. I think this is a very good spot. 7,500, 7,100. He would be my SP2 of the day on DK. Definitely going to have some shares on FanDuel. But again, apparently not a secret, unfortunately. There's enough Ks to support the upside in this Athletics lineup, but they are dangerous. We've got some good home run bats in this lineup. If you were here last week, you heard me ranting and raving about getting poached at the fantasy draft on Tyler Soderstrom, which is why Nathaniel Lowe is my compromise option at first base, like I mentioned earlier. Soderstrom, 3 home runs on the board so far. Lou didn't even start him for those games. He had him on his bench, just wasting away. He had that loser Rafi Devers at his corner infield spot instead. Oh, for the world with a million strikeouts. Way to go. I think Lou actually did go Soderstrom at corner infield over Devers this week. I don't know that I would have done that. But, yeah, love the upside through the full season for Soderstrom, and he's out to a great start. So you start a season like this, and it could just carry. Kid could just gain confidence that he is a for real, ready to rock major league power hitter and just continue to go. So really like that bet, and definitely a little bit of a danger to Mr. Brown here, but it does just translate to a 5.31 in the home run model because, again, Brown really hasn't given many up. Part of the model does rely just on what you've done. Lawrence Butler, 5.71. Brent Rooker down at a 7.51. That might be a little bit low for Brent Rooker's quality. He's got 1 home run on the board so far this year. We've talked about him at length over the last season plus. Monster improvements, a totally different hitter than he was a few years ago. 16.6% barrels, 49.6% hard hits. He's always been good about that part of the game, but he cut his strikeout total down, and more importantly, he cut his whiff rate against every pitch type down last year. Huge strides. Love him. 56-37 is a great one-off for power upside if you're not playing Ben Brown. The key piece to athletic stacks if you're going that direction. Lawrence Butler, good category filler. Nothing to speak of so far in 18 this year, but a breakout last year. 22 homers, 18 steals, and 451 opportunities. Created runs 30% better than average. Had a 228 ISO. Puts good bat on ball at the top of the lineup. Good on base skills. Love him and love that as a 1-2 combination all season long. JJ Bleday is like exactly the kind of guy you would want in the 3 spot through that new lens of a 3-hitter. 243, 324, 437 last year with a 194 ISO. He created runs 20% better than average. Perfectly effective. Can hit you a home run, can get you a solo shot, or drive these guys in if they happen to be on base. But if you're putting somebody out of this group of the top hitters up third with nobody on and 2 outs, you probably want it to be JJ Bleday. Shea Langoliers has more true power upside. You can see that difference in the barrels and the hard hits the last 2 seasons. Even if the totals come away pretty similarly, and last year they didn't, 20 and 29, 10 and 22 the year before. So I guess that's not a concern. Langoliers kind of broke out for power a little bit last year, but he's just a big strikeout, big power guy. He doesn't have that third category for the 3 true outcomes that would make him truly valuable because he doesn't walk. He doesn't get on base effectively. But if you're just looking for cheap catcher power, you can definitely snag some with Shea Langoliers. Righty, lefty, doesn't really matter. Miguel Andujar is a mix and match hit tool player now. Low strikeout, low walk, a lot of bat on ball, medium quality, low home run marks. And then Gio Urshela, Jacob Wilson down the bottom of the lineup, mix and match pieces. Wilson's got a little bit of hit tool, 2,500, 2,300. I just don't really want to occupy shortstop that way with so many good shortstops on the board. The one who's maybe interesting down there is Max Muncy. And I'm realizing that's the wrong Max Muncy on DraftKings and FanDuel. Damn it. Forgot we have the Dodgers on this, right? Yeah. Forgot the Dodgers are on the board. I'll clean that up. Can I still do the Max A. Muncy trick? I forget if I erased that. I missed that earlier when I was cleaning up the projections. Apologies, gang. Should still be there. Oh, against a righty. Oh, that's what I did. I changed the wrong one. Way to go, jackass. I must have changed it out of the projections. All right, I'll fix it. I'll fix it in projections up on the site. The other Max Muncy, the A's one, he is actually an effective enough hitter. So I do think maybe as a cheap option from late in the lineup, if you're stacking up A's, you go to that Max Muncy, and it's all right. I'm going to leave it that way so I remember to fix it in the projections board. 4.06 implied total for the Athletics against Ben Brown. I just prefer the Ben Brown side of that equation, really do. The Cubbies, though, super interesting. 5.54 implied total going up against Joey Estes, a very gettable pitcher. I've been talking about this lineup through last year in terms of their ability to get on base. They're solid but maybe unspectacular power. But that's kind of changed now with Kyle Tucker in the heart of the lineup. That's a 35 home run hitter in a full season. He's got 2 on the board already. Excellent piece to add to the equation here in Chicago. Last season, you got 25 home runs and a 341 on base with a 122 WRC plus out of Ian Happ. Love him in the leadoff role, kind of entrenched up there. Puts a 10-7 on the board for home run upside in front of Kyle Tucker's 13-7, in front of Seiya Suzuki's 10 plus. 9 and change and 8 and change for Michael Busch and Dansby Swanson going down the order. This is one of the top, I think they're the top ranked home run team today. Yeah, number 1 in the aggregate home run model. Chicago Cubs. And they've been putting them up already this season. 2 on the board for Tucker. Happy's got 1. We've got 1 on the board for Suzuki. We've got 1 on the board for Dansby. Don't forget how good Dansby Swanson is. Had a down season last year, but we've got a lot of 20-plus home run seasons out of Dansby over the years. I'm not willing to write him off from one bad season, and even in that, 16 home runs, 19 stolen bases, a point below average for run creation. Still pretty reasonable. Pretty cheap, too, for his talent. And was still making good contact, 9.2% barrels, 42.5% hard hits. So fire away with Dansby shares for a fair price, cheap price at 28 on FanDuel. Michael Busch made very good contact in terms of that barrel rate last year in his 567 plate appearances. Turned it into 21 home runs. Turned it into a 192 ISO. They like his power to grow. 25 home runs, a little bit more than that. A 200-plus ISO definitely could be in the cards. Busch draws a fair walk rate, 11.1% last year. That's up from 9.9, and he cut strikeouts from 33.3 to 28.6 in a small sample in 23. Growing player with some power upside for a very fair price on both sides. Seiya Suzuki in the 3 spot is just easy to get to. Very effective driver of the baseball. Maybe not the best home run hitter overall, but a very solid doubles bat. Did come away with 21 homers last year, a 199 ISO. Very effective bat with a good hit tool. Nico is a mix and match type guy. If he's getting on base, if he's hitting for average, he could use his speed a little bit and exploit that. I've talked a lot about Pete Crow Armstrong already. Had a bad year at the plate while being an outstanding defensive outfielder. He's just going to be in the lineup, and they like him to grow as a hitter. He's got that reputation. He did well as a hitter in the minors, but was abysmal over 410 plate appearances last year, 237, 286, 384, 13% worse than average for run creation. Did manage to swipe 27 bases despite the terrible on base. Slow start to the season so far. 1 stolen base. Needs to show some growth at the plate, but the defense will keep him in the lineup and extend that opportunity even if the bat doesn't come around. Matt Shaw is a decent prospect. He's got a home run on the board already in 24 plate appearances this year. A little bit of power. Definitely some upside there for a cheap price at third base on both sides. And then Miguel Amaya, mix and match contributor. He's off to a good start, but he's not going to continue to do that necessarily at the plate. Cubs bats and Ben Brown tied all the way up top in both categories. And then Athletics bats and really no Joey Estes. I basically skipped Estes. He's another guy, low teen strikeouts, 16-9, 14-9 over the last 2 years. This one doesn't really count. 16-9 and 127 and 2/3 last year, a 5.01 ERA, 10 points below average by Stuff Plus, a 4+% home run rate, a monster fly ball trajectory, exit velocity, projected lineups. Plenty of opportunity for the Cubbies to get this guy. The one thing he was good at last year was not walking hitters, but these Cubs are very good at exploiting pitchers and working walks. So even that is not really on the board for him. Big time opportunity for the Cubs for all things Cubs. Last game, we're over 2 hours on an 8-gamer. We're going to tighten this up. I have got to get around. Do they really have the same birthday? Per Power, both Max Muncies have the same birthday? Is that true? Power not known for trolling or telling stories, but August 25th. That's wild. August 25th, 1990. August 25th, 2002. It gets extra confusing when you consider the fact that Max Muncy original recipe, the one on the Dodgers now, came up with the A's, and he's wearing an A's cap in his photo on FanDuel, on Fangraphs. That is wild. Extra crispy Max Muncy, no photo on Fangraphs, but presumably would be an A's hat if he was. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Top pitcher on the board, Tyler Glasnow. Probably don't need to sell him too hard. It's just kind of obvious. Comes through the model offset by several projection points over everybody else. All we need from Tyler Glasnow is health. 22 starts, 134 innings last season, 3.49 ERA, a 2.68 xFIP, which is better, you'll note, than 3.49. So was even better than it looked like on the surface. Struck out 32.2% of hitters while inducing a 13.8% swinging strike rate, had a .95 whip. Fantastic strikeout to walk ratio, just 6.7% walks. Didn't really allow many home runs because he's just flat difficult to square up. 117 mark is way above average stuff. He's one of the elite aces in baseball when he's healthy. It's just we haven't seen him a lot. Well, that's not fair. We've seen half seasons or partial seasons from him over the last 2 years, and then nothing 3 years ago. So we haven't seen him as much as we should have, but we know that he's good whenever he's here. He's utterly elite on the mound at any price. Going up against a free-swinging Braves club, there should be plenty of upside. They're not completely safe for him, but you can see what he's doing to the home run marks even for Austin Riley, Matt Olson below the magic number, Marcell Ozuna below the magic number. They've also, Braves out to another pretty bad start over, again, 3 games. It doesn't matter. I'm not actually saying that, but just like, looking at this, it's not a great 3 games. You'd love them to have started a little bit hotter if you're a Braves fan. So it could be another rough night on Braves bats. Glasnow go out there and mow down 8-9 hitters in 5 and change innings. Jurickson Profar off the top of the Braves, 15.1% Ks last year at 11.4% walk rate. Hadn't really done much in his 16 plate appearances so far. We'll see what he does for the season. Switch hitter at the top of the lineup if you're going to a team with a 3.28 implied total against the best pitcher on the slate just because you feel like being extra contrarian and banging your head into the wall, you would include him in that stack. Austin Riley is cheap at 4,600, but all the Braves are cheap because they're facing Tyler Glasnow. 3,300 on FanDuel. If you're going to pick them off for low prices, this is the day to do it. But again, you're not drawing dead, but you're drawing to pretty low odds coming into your river card with with those Braves selections. But Austin Riley would definitely be one of the cards you want in your hand. Same with Matt Olson, same with Marcell Ozuna. It's kind of obvious. The idea that I can get a 5-man of those 5, actually I would do these 5 guys. The fact that I can get a 5-man of Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, and Michael Harris for $4,500 apiece does have a little bit of bent appeal. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I would probably roll that at least once on DraftKings, just that 5-man, just because it's the opportunity to roster all those hitters a little bit cheap. But it's not a good spot. It is very low expectation. Do not do that if you are at all risk averse. Ozuna had a terrific year last year. Carried the team all season, hit 300, ton of home runs. Ozzie Albies had a down season last year. Matt Olson had a down season. The power was way out. Austin Riley had a down season and missed a lot of time with injuries. Albies also missed a lot of time with injuries. Michael Harris missed time with injuries and had a down season, but was moderately effective. He's a good counting stat contributor in home runs and stolen bases. Albies can steal a bag, hit you a home run, and then the 2 through 4 hitters are just monster power bats when all things are going well. So there's a lot of quality in this Braves lineup. Toward the bottom, Baldwin, the fill-in catcher for now, not out to a great start over 12 plate appearances, but won the job coming out of camp to fill in for Sean Murphy while he's injured. Orlando Arcia, solid season 2 years ago, bad one last year. Not a great start over just 10 plate appearances so far. And then Mr. Kelnick has a home run on the board in his 13 opportunities. I do still like his upside. I still think that skill set is there, but we'll see what happens. And then there's Grant Holmes. I guess he pitched an inning in relief. 64 and a third last year, 6 starts, 23.5% strikeout rate, a 3.78 ERA, 3.62 xFIP. Solid enough numbers. The swinging strike rate is dynamite, 15.7% swinging. He actually, with that swinging strike rate and that CSW, should have finished off more than 23.5% of hitters, honestly, but that's effective. Made 4 spring starts, got out to 5 and a third in his final spring start, faced 22 hitters. 2 runs, struck out 3, walked 2. So the reasonable enough idea of a 5+ inning opportunity here if things go well. The biggest thing working against the Grant Holmes play is the Dodgers. My hope is they destroy him and we get him cheaper next time. And with people not wanting to play him. Because I do think there's talent there. He projects out kind of okay for those cheap prices, more so on FanDuel, but you're just not going to go there against Los Angeles. I just wouldn't do it. Even in a contrarian sense. I don't see it. Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Max Muncy, the real one, Will Smith. That's a 6-man superstar lineup. And then you add Tommy Edman, Michael Conforto, and Andy Pajas to it. Any one of those 3 guys at the bottom can and probably needs to be swapped in for any one of the expensive superstars. So you're just kind of picking and choosing what you like out of this Los Angeles lineup. There's really not a bad choice to be made on the board there. What I will say is only Ohtani is above the magic number in the home run model, which we don't typically see. These are very good home run hitters. So Grant Holmes is having a little bit of an impact there. I wouldn't worry about it. Dodgers still the top of the board in terms of the fantasy projections. Everybody projects out great. Highest implied total on the board. So we're not sweating that. But they're going to get popular. Everybody's going to roster the stars. Everybody's going to put together the same combinations as far as discounting within the stack of Dodgers because there's only so many things you can do to change it up. So what you really got to concentrate on when you stack Dodgers is what are they stacked with? What pitching are you getting to? What secondary stack are you getting to? That's where some of potentially the sneakier value plays on the board could come through when we're talking about value stacking. So you might want to pay a little bit of attention to that when you're stacking up Dodgers. But Ohtani, any given lineup, first and outfield eligible, you just pay whatever price they're asking for him. 2 home runs and a stolen base on the board. Mookie, 500 over his 9 plate appearances, 2 home runs on the board already. I guess the rumors of Mookie emaciating his way to death, being emaciated to death, that doesn't work that way. You can't use emaciated as a verb. Starving himself to death. I guess that's not going to happen. 5,500, 4,300, 3 positions on FanDuel. You just get Mookie Betts. 5,000, 3,800 for Freddie Freeman, who's got 2 home runs on the board. We saw Freddie dip a little bit for average in the triple slash across on base and everything last year. Still Freddie Freeman. It still made him one of the best first basemen in any given slate superstar. Teoscar under 5,000 on DraftKings because somebody has to be. 1 home run on the board this year. 211 ISO in his limited sample. Max Muncy, cheap for his talent, 44.33. His price really hasn't rebounded yet. 1 home run on the board so far this season. He's the easiest angle into maintaining star caliber production while getting a little bit cheaper with these Dodgers. So Max Muncy is kind of the keystone piece as far as stacking up the Dodgers for me. You want him to help offset some price. So it's like, all right, Muncy instead of Freddie, and then Conforto instead of Teoscar, and now maybe I can pay for the other guys. right? Like, what does that look like? That's a 4-man, and I'm at 53 apiece. That's still pretty high. If I lock Teoscar into it as a 5, it gets to 52. That's pretty aggressive. Maybe they work better as a 3-man. But I do think Max Muncy at the $4,400 price is way too low, and that's them being generous to people who are trying to stack up Dodgers there. There's really no justification to have him that low. 15 home runs in 293 plate appearances last season, a 262 ISO. 36 home runs in 579 plate appearances with a 263 ISO. He's a 3 true outcomes guy. He's the definition of that. 15.4% walks last year, 14.7% the year before. He just hits home runs and gets on base and creates runs. He's never going to hit for average. He is going to strike out. He will give you the occasional 0, but he's a super productive hitter, and he's too cheap. Will Smith is an excellent catcher bat. Doesn't strike out. Has big-time power. Pretty decent hit tool. So far, off to a good start in his 17 plate appearances. Again, not that matters, but you like to see it. Tommy Edman got out to a great start with 3 home runs that were a little bit unexpected. But he's a very good utility guy. The 4,800 on DraftKings honestly doesn't work at all for Tommy Edman. I just noticed that. So don't consider that a discount option, and probably don't pay that tax for Tommy Edman's early season production. That's a little silly. 2,700 on FanDuel with 3 positions is where you want Tommy Edman because you can move him around the board, and that's a cheap price for a guy who's been a productive run scorer and leadoff man over time. Stolen bases are on the board, but he's not like a $4,800 power bat like DraftKings priced him like. Michael Conforto kind of is, and he's only 3,800. Hasn't done much this season, but 375 on base over his 16 plate appearances, a 214 ISO. No home runs on the board, but it's at least nice to see him drive the ball. 20 home runs in 488 plate appearances with a 212 ISO last year. Still a competent lefty bat. 3,800, 2,900, going up against a, inexperienced righty, converted reliever. You do worse. Andy Pages is cheap and does have true power upside. And that, guys, is your slate. 2 hours and 16 minutes. Here's the pitching board one last time. Really like this spot, but it's going to get a little bit popular, apparently. Rasmussen's not uninteresting at lower prices than some of the other guys. I kind of like Rasmussen better than I like Ronel Blanco for a discount. They project very similarly. Particularly on DK. Bowden Francis, big question mark in my mind. We had a lot of big pluses down the stretch last season, a lot of big minuses in every other spot we've ever seen him. Washington, competent enough. Don't love that spot. Think it might get a little overhyped. But he is cheap on DK, but as stated, a little bit more popular here for the cheap price than he is here. I kind of like it as a semi-contrarian option on FanDuel if you're going to play it at all. Soroka, we'll see what happens. Gets really thin really fast down here. You can load up on Tyler Glass now and make your life easy, but I do like that Ben Brown spot. Home run picks are up on the website. There's a quick glance at it. You've been seeing those in this column all along, though. But that was the home run board. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the home run pick of the day on the website. Check out rotoscouts.com for all your projections needs. I got to get out of here so I can go project that baseball slate. It is too late in the afternoon for me to not have done that yet. So let me get on that. Updates for MLB, all the lineups. I'll change out the correct Max Muncy for the Athletics. Everything's up on Rotoscouts. Access to this, access to NHL and NBA main slate projections under $1 a day, all in for all of it, guys. So check out rotoscouts.com. Subscribe on YouTube for free. Subscribe over at Rotoscouts for under $1 a day. You guys absolutely rock. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share a screenshot when you do. By the way, congrats to all our winners. We've had a bunch of people succeeding with the logo on the accounts on big tournaments on FanDuel. I saw a couple on DraftKings. We've had a bunch of successes and first places in smaller contests, which is kind of like key for what we're shooting for here with catering toward hand builds and 5 entries, 20 entries type of players. So a lot of people are coming up pretty strong so far early in the season. Power's got a few lineups against Ben Brown. Look, Power, I said it while we were breaking that down. I like that A's lineup, so I would do the same thing. I will have some A's against my own Ben Brown shares. So I'm with you. That's not going against me. That's right in line with my expectations. So, yeah, you guys rock. Again, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share a screenshot when you do, and we'll be back tomorrow to do this all over again. maybe more efficiently tomorrow. See you guys.